My name is Chinemo. I woke up to find myself in a strange body, a boy with wolf ears on his head. Before I could make sense of anything, an old shaman in wolf skin was already painting blood on my forehead. He slashed my chest with his claws. The pain told me this was real. I had actually crossed into another world. But the ritual failed. I couldn't transform into a beast like everyone else. The shaman looked at me with disgust and told me to get lost. My so-called brothers and sisters, kids who used to follow me around, watched me leave with cold eyes. They escorted me to the edge of our territory and told me never to come back. Even my father, the Wolf King, didn't protect me. He never liked me much anyway. In this world, if you can't transform, you can't hunt. And if you can't hunt, your tribe throws you out to die in the wilderness. I didn't feel too sorry for myself. I touched the fuzzy wolf ears on my head, looked around the dark plains, and started walking south toward the mountains. Open land is dangerous when you're alone. I needed shelter. I made it to the mountain range after days of walking. I found a cave halfway up a peak near a stream. No other beastier people around. I started gathering berries and wild greens to survive. My wolf blood craved meat, so I built traps. Most failed, but I got lucky and caught a wild rabbit. With some strength back, I spent 2 days shaping stones into spears. One morning by the stream, I spotted a tiny rabbit-eared girl being chased by a huge fox. She was small, barely reaching my chest, and her little legs were a blur. The fox was faster. Just when it lunged at her, she flipped onto her back and kicked it hard with both feet, some kind of rabbit survival move. The fox went flying. I didn't waste the chance. I threw my spear. It hit the fox from 20 meters away. The beast grabbed at the shaft, stumbled, and collapsed. The little rabbit girl saw me coming with another spear and dropped to her knees, shaking. She squeezed her eyes shut and whispered, scared, of pain, but I walked right past her. I knelt beside the fox and started skinning it with a stone blade. She fainted on the spot. When she woke up in my cave, she tried to sneak out. I told her not to worry. I only eat animals, not beastier people. She was too weak to run anyway. Turns out she was like me. She failed her transformation too and got kicked out by her rabbit tribe. Rabbit people who can't transform can't even digest plant fiber properly in their human form. Same fate, different tribe. She watched me struggle with something she'd never seen before. I was trying to make fire. I'd been at it for days using a bow drill, blowing on wood shavings and fox fur. Nothing but thin smoke every time. Then finally, a spark caught. A tiny flame grew. She screamed. To beastier people, fire means disaster. It burns forests and destroys everything. She pointed at it and yelled, "Disaster." I just grinned and let out a howl. We must have looked ridiculous, me celebrating, her terrified, both sitting in the same dark cave. That night, I finished cleaning the fox skin by the fire. I scraped the inside with my stone knife, roasted it to dry it out. Tomorrow I'd soak it in ash water to cure the leather. I knew how to do all this not because I had some magical cheat system. Back on Earth, I used to write novels. I researched survival skills and farming techniques for my characters. Funny, I created dozens of cheat systems for my fictional heroes, but when I crossed over myself, I got nothing. The only gift I received was a perfect memory of my old life, like a movie I could replay anytime in my head. That was my only advantage in this world. I spread the fox skin over a pile of dry grass. It made a decent bed. The little rabbit girl didn't leave. She figured out I wasn't going to eat her, and she had nowhere else to go, so she stayed. Fine by me. Living alone out here was getting lonely, and I could use an extra pair of hands. That night, I roasted fox meat over the fire. It smelled awful. My sharp wolf nose picked up every bit of that musky stink. But I was starving, so I bit into it anyway. No salt, no seasoning. It tasted about as bad as you'd imagine. Then I heard her stomach growl. She was huddled against the cave wall, hugging her knees. I held out a piece of meat. Want some? Her eyes lit up. She crawled over and snatched it with her mouth, then sat there nibbling with both hands. I was surprised. She was supposed to be a herbivore. But I remembered that even regular rabbits on Earth sometimes eat meat for protein. Her body had evolved into a human form, so she could probably digest it. Between the two of us, we ate nearly half the fox, maybe 7 or 8 pounds of meat. I patted my belly, satisfied. I'd smoke the rest tomorrow to make it last. Before sleeping, I buried some embers in ash to save the fire, then blocked the cave entrance with a big tree root and branches. When I turned around, the little rabbit girl yelped. My eyes were glowing faint green in the dark. Wolf eyes. I told her to go to sleep. I woke up the next morning with something warm curled up against me. She'd crawled into my arms during the night, her rabbit ears drooping in sleep. My hand was somehow gripping her little puff of a tail. This kid had guts, sleeping in the arms of a wolf. I grabbed one of her ears to wake her up. She jolted awake and accidentally grabbed something she really shouldn't have. Let go, I snapped. She released her grip and looked at me with big, watery eyes. Wolf, don't eat. I snorted. You? Not tasty. Standing up, I realized I was still completely naked, and certain things were very obvious in the morning. She just stared with wide, clueless eyes. I scratched my chin and decided I really needed to make some clothes. I came from a civilized world. Running around naked all day didn't sit right. Plus, if something important got scratched during a hunt, my life would be ruined. I kicked her gently. Come on, let's find food. Her face broke into a smile. She understood. I was keeping her around. On the way down the mountain, I kept pointing at myself. I'm Chinimo Chinimo. She tried it over and over until she finally got it right. Chun. M.O. I rubbed her head. Good girl. Then I thought about what to call her. White rabbit ears, small and pale. She reminded me of the jade rabbit from old legends. I decided to name her Chinyu. She didn't understand at first, but by the time we reached the bottom, it clicked. Chinyu was her name now. She was so happy she hopped and bounced across the grassy slope, clutching the stone spear I'd given her. I'd made 3 spears. She carried 1. I carried 2 on my back, and I had a rough stone dagger hanging from a bark rope around my waist. At the stream, Chinyu spotted little yellow flowers in the grass. She plucked a handful and stuffed them in her mouth, then tried to feed some to me. I shook my head. I wasn't eating unknown plants raw. Yummy, she insisted, looking hurt that I refused. I waded into the cold stream to practice spear fishing. The water was shallow, clear to the bottom, and full of fish. No bears around to compete with. Out of maybe 50 attempts, I speared 3 fish, all decent-sized. Enough for lunch. Then Chinyu cried out. I rushed over and found her finger bleeding. She'd cut herself trying to strip bark with the stone knife, the way I'd shown her. She was being tough about it, but her eyes looked pitiful. I chewed up some Drew blood grass I recognized from this body's memories. It looked like a thistle, and pressed it onto her cut. Every bestiar tribe passes down little survival tricks like that, just like dogs back on Earth somehow know which plants to eat when they're sick. I spent the rest of the morning trying to weave a basket from branches and bark strips. Chinyu sat beside me watching my hands work, fascinated. By noon I'd finished something that looked roughly like a bowl. I scooped yellow clay from the stream bed into it, tossed the 3 fish on top, and we headed back up to the cave. The grilled fish at lunch smelled wonderful. Chinyu forced down half a fish. She didn't love meat, but I made her finish a whole one. Her body needed the protein. After eating, I started experimenting with the clay, trying to fire simple pottery. I needed a container to boil water. Drinking raw stream water forever was a death sentence. Parasites, bacteria, all kinds of problems. In this world, even with their stronger human-like bodies, wolf-ear people only lived to about 30. They drank raw water, ate raw meat, and lived like wild animals. But I knew better. If I could solve food, clean water, and basic hygiene, there was no reason I couldn't live to 50 or 60. That knowledge from my old life was the one real weapon I had. The clay I brought back wasn't for pottery yet. I used it to seal the gaps in a small stone stove I'd built near the cave entrance. The mountain wind kept scattering my fire, so I packed clay between the stones to hold the heat in. I told Chinyu to stay in the cave while I went out. She grabbed my arm, scared to be alone. I smiled and promised I'd be back before sunset. She understood that much. Her mother used to say the same thing before leaving to find food. After a short rest, I headed down to the stream with 2 spears. I wanted to gather more stones and clay to patch holes inside the cave. Couldn't have snakes crawling in at night. Then I heard a roar. I dropped flat into the tall grass. It sounded like a bear. A moment later, a pig's shriek joined in. They were fighting. I crept closer. In the stream stood an enormous wild boar, nearly 3 meters long. Facing it was a brown bear, standing upright, but clearly smaller than a normal wild bear. That told me he was probably a barrier tribesman in beast form, not a true wild animal. His belly was bleeding badly where the boar had gored him. The bear was smart, though. He kept dodging instead of charging head-on. But then his transformation ran out. His body shrank down into a bald, muscular man, blood still pouring from his gut. The boar sensed weakness and charged. What happened next stunned me. The man grabbed both of the boar's tusks with his bare hands. The boar pushed him sliding through the water, but he held on. When the pig paused to breathe, he slammed its head underwater. The boar thrashed back up and flung him through the air. He splashed down hard and didn't move. The boar stood there gasping. This was my chance. It had burned most of its energy fighting the bear man. I sprinted out of the bushes without a sound. At 10 meters, the boar turned its head. The last thing it saw from that eye was my spear flying straight into it. The boar screamed, a horrible, piercing sound that echoed across the whole valley. But a stone spear through the eye wasn't enough to kill something this tough. It just made it furious. The half-blind boar charged at me. I turned and ran. No way was I fighting this thing up close. It chased me for dozens of meters before its legs started shaking. The fight with the bear had drained it. It stopped, panting heavily. So I stopped too. I picked up rocks and started throwing them from 6 or 7 meters away. When it tried to stand and charge, I backed off. When it collapsed again, I moved in and kept throwing. I lost count of how many stones I hurled. The boar finally lay on its side, belly heaving. I thought about how primitive hunters on Earth used to do exactly this. Wound an animal, then follow it for hours until it bled out. Humans win with patience, not strength. My only worry was the barrier man coming back to steal my kill. But with that belly wound, he probably couldn't. I kept testing the boar. Every time I got close, it would lurch up one more time. I'd run, wait, come back. This went on until sunset. When the first bright star appeared in the sky, I finally picked up a rock the size of my head, crept within a few meters, and smashed it down on the boar's skull. No sound this time, just a dull thud. I grabbed my spear and stabbed its belly several times to make sure. It was dead. I stood there catching my breath, looking up at hawks circling overhead. The boar was massive. No way I could drag it home, even with Chinyu helping. I'd have to butcher what I could carry. I checked where the bear man had fallen. He was gone. That made me uneasy. As long as he was alive somewhere nearby, I'd have to stay alert. I cut open the boar's belly, pulled out the guts, and carved off as much meat as I could fit in my woven basket. The thing was huge, but surprisingly lean. I covered the rest of the carcass with branches, hoping the hawks would leave me something for tomorrow. Back at the cave, Chinyu smelled the blood on me and went pale. "You," I grinned. "I'm fine. Look what I got." I couldn't help showing off. This was my first big kill. Of course, I'd had help from the bear man softening it up. Alone, I'd never have picked a fight with a wild boar that size. Chinyu stared at the pile of pork, then started bouncing up and down, flashing her big front teeth, her red eyes shining with something like admiration. "Roast pork tonight." She dug into the grilled meat happily. It tasted way better than fox. Somewhere in the middle of chewing, she paused with a strange look on her face. She was realizing she didn't actually hate eating meat anymore. That seemed to confuse her a little. The next morning I took Chinyu down to the boar carcass. When I saw it, I couldn't help shouting. The whole thing had been picked clean overnight. Nothing left but a pile of white bones. Some bones were even missing. The smaller predators around here were ruthless. Still, bones had their uses. The boar's tusks especially, sharpen the tips, and you've got a decent short weapon. I started hammering at the base of the tusks with a rock to break them free. Chinyu was studying the bones quietly. Then her face went tense. "Bear? Bear? Where?" My whole body stiffened. She stuck out her tongue and pointed at bite marks on the leg bone. I leaned in and sniffed. My wolf blood confirmed it. Bear teeth. That wounded barrier man had dragged himself here during the night to eat his share. With that gut wound, the toughness was almost admirable. Footprints. Chinyu pointed at the ground. I felt a little embarrassed. This tiny rabbit girl was more observant than me. She read tracks like a seasoned hunter. I scratched my head. Clearly, anyone can be your teacher. My brain was still stuck in modern world thinking. As a wilderness hunter, I was a complete amateur. After that day, no big animals showed up near the stream for a while. Herds of giant deer passed through sometimes, but I was too busy teaching Chinyu how to make pottery to go chasing them. We had enough stored food. We shaped clay pots together using coils of mud, stacking rings and smoothing them out. The good news, our pots looked decent. The bad news, most of them cracked when we fired them. After 7 or 8 days, we'd only managed a few small bowls. We didn't give up. We adjusted the fire temperature, improved our little kiln, and I kept replaying every pottery video I'd ever watched in my head. I tried flipping the pots upside down during firing. Slowly, we figured things out. On the 10th day, we finally completed a large clay jar. M.O. Chinyu threw her arms around me and bounced in circles. She was wearing a strip of fox fur I'd cut and stitched into a simple chest wrap. Her excitement gave me energy to keep going. I pinched her rabbit ear playfully. She squeezed her legs together in that pigeon-toed way anime girls do and made a little whimpering sound, trembling slightly. It was distracting. I laughed it off and wondered briefly whether two different beast ear species could even have children. From this body's memories, it seemed possible, but those mixed children almost never awakened beast powers and got rejected by every tribe. I had Chinyu practice braiding bark rope while I built a simple stretcher, not for carrying people, but for hauling supplies. When I went to check my traps near the stream, I spotted someone in the water, a shiny bald head, the barrier man, washing himself. His belly wound had already scabbed over into a dark reddish clot. No infection at all. These people healed like animals. I wasn't afraid of him. Bears can't outrun wolves. In my memories, I'd seen barrier people try to chase wolf-ear people and fail every time. As long as I kept my distance, I was safe. He noticed me staring and turned around. We locked eyes from 2 or 3 meters apart. He smiled. I didn't smile back. I stayed on guard. He stood up and called out a single word. Wolf. I raised an eyebrow. He rubbed his bald head and gave me a nod. Was he trying to be friendly? I wasn't ready to trust him. I nodded back, then turned and walked away. Behind me, I could feel his disappointment. Over the following days, the bald barrier man kept showing up at the stream. He never came closer than 20 meters. He seemed to understand my boundaries. Sometimes he'd toss fish in my direction. I'd occasionally throw him a rabbit from my traps in return. I didn't eat much rabbit anyway. Too much protein isn't good for you. And with spring deepening, food wasn't scarce. He started watching me fish with a spear and tried copying me with a wooden stick. He couldn't hit a single fish. Chinyu sat on the bank shaping clay coils, giggling at his clumsy attempts. After failing repeatedly, he just sat in the water and laughed at himself. I couldn't take it anymore. I waved for him to throw me the stick. He got excited and hurled it over. I barely dodged in time. The thing came at me like a missile. Bear strength was no joke. I picked up the stick and carved it into a proper wooden spear with my stone knife. I hesitated before throwing it back. Could I really trust him? But after 20-some days of living near each other, he'd shown no hostility. These primitive beast-ear people seemed straightforward, not much scheming in them. Just as I was about to toss him the spear, wolf howls echoed across the valley. My face changed instantly. Chinyu, let's go. I grabbed her hand. Behind us, the bear man roared, trying to scare the wolves away with his presence. I shouted back at him. Bear, run. He glanced at me, but didn't move. Wolves emerged from the western bushes. The lead wolf had 2 distinctive white patches on its mane. I slowed down. I recognized that marking. It was my father's, the wolf king of my old tribe. What were they doing all the way out here? I crouched with Chinyu in the grass across the stream to watch. The wolves shifted back into human form. 6 wolf-ear tribesmen surrounding the bald bear man. My father stood at the front. They seemed to be talking. Then the bear man growled and stepped forward angrily. The 5 wolves behind my father immediately transformed and snarled at him. What are they? In what? Chinyu whispered. Doing what? I corrected her quietly. Even now I couldn't stop teaching her grammar. She repeated it. Doing what? I don't know. I shook my head. She tugged my arm nervously. Go. Not yet. Let's watch a little more. Before we could say anything else, a roar shook the air. The bear man had transformed into his brown bear form. The wolves circled him, darting in and out, looking for openings to bite. The fight didn't last long. The bear man ran out of beast form and stood there panting, covered in fresh bite wounds. He looked toward the upstream part of the stream with sad eyes, then turned and walked away. The wolves let him go. They'd won. They owned this territory now. They took his land, I muttered, frowning. I didn't want my old tribe expanding their territory to this stream. This was my home now. Let's go. They might smell us. I pulled Chinyu away, my face dark. Were we going to have to move again? I'd just gotten settled. Back in the cave, I couldn't sleep. The firelight danced on the walls while I tossed and turned. Yu slept peacefully in my arms, not a care in the world. I noticed her body seemed to have grown a bit. Then a thought hit me, and I shivered. Spring had arrived. Mating season for animals. I wasn't exactly a saint, and my mind started wandering. I was about to wake her when I heard a noise outside. Something had triggered one of my traps. I grabbed my spear instantly. Peeking through the branches covering the cave entrance, I saw a big man rolling on the ground, clutching his foot. In the moonlight, I recognized the shiny bald head. The bear man. How did he find my cave in the dark? Wolf, he called out. I stayed silent, gripping my spear. If he came any closer, I'd strike without hesitation. Wolf, come out, he called again. Yu woke up and crept to my side with a spear of her own. I motioned her to be quiet. The bear man limped to within 3 meters of the entrance. The sharpened stakes in my trap hadn't pierced his foot. Bear people were just that tough, even in human form. He sniffed the air, confirming he'd found the right place, then said quietly, I'm leaving. He'd come to say goodbye. In the dark, risking my traps, just to warn me. I was touched. If he'd wanted to attack, he could have done it weeks ago. Where are you going? I finally spoke. His face lit up when he heard my voice, then went sad again. He pointed at the ground. Wolf Ear Tribe. There's now. You go. He was worried I'd get killed by my old tribe. He'd come in the middle of the night just to tell me. I pushed the branches aside and showed my face. He grinned, a big, honest grin. I thought about everything. Being thrown out by my own people, and now losing my new home to them. I'd remember this debt. Then he pointed east and tried to explain something. 2 sunsets. Water. You. He waved his arms wildly. I didn't understand. He slapped his forehead, suddenly transformed into a bear. Yu and I both froze, then immediately shifted back. He pointed at me, pointed east. You. Go. No beast, I understood. East of here, about 2 days' travel, there were other beastier people who couldn't transform. A whole group of outcasts like me. I nodded. Thank you. He tilted his head, confused by the word. I smiled and tossed him the wooden spear I'd carved for him yesterday. He picked it up, stared at the sharpened tip for a moment, then waved goodbye and limped away into the cold moonlight. I almost asked him to stay, but bears are loners by nature, and we hadn't built enough trust for that. I watched him disappear into the dark. Spring arrived in full. The wilderness turned green everywhere, with herds of giant animals roaming the open plains. 2 days east, deep in the Ancestor Mountains, there was a peak that towered above the rest. Halfway up, a massive round crater, like an old volcano, held a lake as blue as a gemstone. Dozens of caves dotted the crater walls. This was where the outcasts lived, families from many different beastier tribes, all of them unable to transform, banded together to survive. Their leader was a tiger ear man. He couldn't shift forms, but he was incredibly strong. He could kill a wild wolf with his bare hands. His people had learned to dig caves, throw rocks, and hunt with bone clubs and heavy sticks. One day, the tiger leader took a dozen men downhill to hunt a herd of bighorn sheep. It was dangerous work. One ram charge could mean a fatal wound. They chased the herd until the old and young sheep fell behind, then pelted them with stones. For once, the spring hunt was going well. Then roars came from the east. 8 men with golden manes sprinted toward them. Lion Ear tribesmen. The tiger leader yelled a warning. The lion men didn't stop. They shifted into massive lions, bigger than any lion from my old world, and charged. Rocks bounced off their thick hides like pebbles. The fight was brutal. The outcast wooden clubs couldn't do real damage to the lions, but one swipe of a lion's paw ripped flesh and snapped necks. Men started running. The tiger leader stood his ground, dodging and landing a solid hit on one lion's nose with his bone club, but his belly got slashed open in the process. Soon he was surrounded. He gripped his club and looked around, amber eyes full of despair. He was done running from this life. If he was going to die today, he'd take one of them with him. The lions shifted back to human form to mock him. One of them urinated on him while the others laughed. The tiger man roared and charged, but he was too wounded, too slow. He tripped and fell. A foot pressed his face into the dirt. The lion men clicked their tongues and cackled. Then a spear came out of nowhere. None of them had expected it. One lion man looked down at the shaft sticking through his gut, confused. What was that? The lions went berserk. They all shifted into beast form and roared in every direction, but they couldn't see anyone. Just tall grass, swaying in the wind like green ocean waves. Nobody showed themselves. One lion got impatient and moved toward the tiger leader to finish him off. Another spear flew out of the grass and hit the lion right in the eye. It screamed. The remaining lions spotted where the spear came from and charged, but found nothing. When they turned back, another spear came from a different angle, punching a hole in another lion's side. They didn't know what they were dealing with, and that scared them. A few roars to save face, and they bolted east. The wounded one limped after them without looking back. I stepped out of the grass. The tiger leader was lying on the ground, barely breathing. I knelt beside him and started pressing chewed-up blood grass onto his belly wound. It was bad, a huge gash. I had nothing to stitch it with. He probably wasn't going to make it. He opened his eyes and stared at my face, then looked down at my spear. "What is that?" I was surprised he could speak in full sentences. "A spear." His eyes flickered. "You failed the beast transformation?" "Yes." He reached out and touched my forehead with his bloody hand, drawing a line across it. "You, tribesman." Just like that, I was accepted. The men around us cheered. Part of it was genuine warmth. These outcasts didn't have much, but their feelings were real. The other part was what they'd seen. I'd practiced spear throwing for a long time, and combined with a little strategy, I'd scared off a whole pack of lion-ear warriors. They'd never seen a spear before. Anything unknown is terrifying. Honestly, I'd been ready to run the whole time. I never expected those lions to actually flee. We carried the wounded tiger leader up the mountain along with the sheep they'd caught. I called Chinyu out from her hiding spot. The two of us walked behind the group, carrying our belongings in bark rope net bags on our backs. Everyone kept glancing at us curiously. When we reached the crater lake halfway up the peak, Chinyu and I both stopped and stared. It was breathtaking, a round basin, probably formed by a meteorite long ago, shaped like a giant bowl. A blue lake filled 2/3 of it, birds circling and diving over the still water. We climbed down into the crater along a natural dirt slope. The tribe lived in caves carved into the crater walls, some natural, some dug by hand. Each family had their own. I did a quick count, maybe 60 or 70 people total, mostly adults, with a handful of children, the product of families these outcasts had formed on their own. A few wolf-ear men came over to look me up and down. The biggest one, with thick gray fur on his arms and chest, pointed toward my old tribe's direction. "Wolf-ear?" From there, I nodded. He broke into a grin and slapped my shoulder, then thumped his hairy chest. "Same tribe, fellow rejects from the wolf-ear clan. We shared the same blood and the same shame." 2 wolf-ear women came forward and helped me pick out a cave. I chose one with an entrance about 2 meters wide. Inside it was dark, dry enough, but the floor was loose soil and the whole thing was only about 4 meters deep. Too close to the water for my liking, the dampness bothered me. "We'll stay here a few days," I told Chinyu. "Then I'll try building a grass hut." As we stepped outside, the 2 wolf women gave Chinyu odd looks. A wolf-ear boy living with a rabbit-ear girl. I could guess what they were thinking. I just smiled and nodded. A leopard-ear man walked over carrying a massive sheep leg and a horn. He handed them to me. Apparently, as the one who'd saved the hunt, I got the biggest share. I noticed the leg had been broken off at the joint by smashing it with a rock. These people already used tools, just not refined ones. Getting them into a proper stone tool age wouldn't be hard. I asked about the tiger leader. The leopard man sighed and shook his head. Just a matter of time. After he left, the big gray-furred wolf man came back. He thumped his chest right in front of me. "Me? Leader, these primitive people really had no filter. We'd just met, and he was already campaigning." I smiled without agreeing. He stared at the sheep leg in Chunyu's hands, clearly expecting me to share. I didn't. He walked off annoyed, probably planning to put me in my place once he was in charge. I didn't care. I took Chinyu down to the lake. The water was clear, the shore covered in smooth pebbles. I picked up a flat stone and skipped it across the surface. Chinyu tried copying me. Her stone just plopped and sank. She pouted. I laughed, and she stomped her foot and kept trying. The real reason I came to the lake was to check for fish. I couldn't swim in yet. The mountain water was still freezing cold and summer was weeks away. A big white bird answered my question. It dove head first into the lake and burst back out a moment later with a fat fish thrashing in its beak. I grinned. This place had everything: water, shelter, food. We could make this work. Yu and I came back from the lake carrying firewood and stones. We were going to make fire and roast that sheep leg for dinner. But when we reached our cave, two wolf-ear men were already squatting there, ripping into our sheep leg with their bare teeth. For other wolf-ear people stood nearby, watching hungrily, too weak to fight for a share. They were waiting for scraps. I recognized the bigger one, the gray-furred wolf man who'd told me he was going to be the next leader. He'd walked right into my cave and taken my food. "Hey," I shouted. He glanced at me and kept chewing. Everyone else backed away. They'd seen this before. The big wolf always bullied newcomers. I dropped my stones and walked straight up to him. I grabbed the sheep leg. He grinned. This was exactly what he wanted. A challenge. He bared his teeth and snarled. People cleared a circle around us. The leopard ear man came and stood behind Yu to watch. Tribe rules said nobody could interfere in a one-on-one fight. The leopard man had seen what I could do with a spear at range, but up close. I was shorter and lighter than the big wolf. He didn't think I had a chance. I understood the situation perfectly. I unslung my spear and stepped back. The big wolf pounded his chest. One of the wolf women handed him his weapon, a bone club made from some animal's thigh bone, still stained with old, blackened blood. He planned to break my arm and make me submit. I kept retreating, gripping my spear. Everyone thought I was scared. The big wolf roared and stepped forward confidently. Then I threw. He didn't bother dodging. He thought a thin wooden stick couldn't hurt him. He tried to swat it aside, but it was too fast. Luck wasn't on his side today. The spear punched through his belly. He snarled and charged forward on pure rage, but his vision was already blurring. He swung his bone club at me. I sidestepped easily and drove my second spear into his side, right where the kidney would be. The last burst of strength drained out of him. He dropped to his knees and fell face first into the dirt. The whole fight lasted maybe 10 seconds. Some people hadn't even processed what happened. When they saw the big wolf lying dead, fear spread across their faces. I looked coldly at the other wolf-ear men. Every one of them lowered their heads. That's wolf tradition. You lose, you submit. The leopard man walked over and raised my hand in the air. People all around, wolf ears, leopard ears, everyone, let out shouts of approval. I walked over to the half-eaten sheep leg, picked it up, and tossed it to the 4 wolf-ear people who'd been crouching on the ground waiting for leftovers. 2 men, 2 women. They stared at me, stunned. "Eat," I said. They grabbed the leg together and tore into it, overjoyed. That evening I sat at the cave entrance working my bow drill. I'd made fire several times now, so it didn't take long. Yu carried water from the lake in our clay pot. The wolf-ear people crawled to the edges of their caves to watch. When they saw sparks appear, their eyes went wide with terror. When the flame caught and grew, they started growling. Disaster. Other people came from across the settlement to stare from a safe distance. Nobody dared come close. They couldn't believe I was just sitting there next to an open fire. The leopard man was the bravest. He crouched down beside me and stared at the flames. I asked him, "You're not afraid?" "Afraid," he admitted. "Fire is useful," I told him. "It won't spread if you control it." He didn't really understand my words, but he stayed. I stacked stones into a simple stove and set the clay pot on top. When the water boiled, Yu brought over some dried meat and dropped it in, then crushed some blueberries and tossed those in too. The smell of meat soup drifted through the settlement. I heard people swallowing. Brave ones crept closer. A few children ran up behind Yu to peek. She noticed a little cat-ear girl wearing a crown of flowers and pulled her close, rubbing their cheeks together. I scooped a small bowl of soup, blew on it, and took a sip. It was wonderful. I heard a loud gulp beside me and handed the bowl to the leopard man. He copied my blowing, then drank it all in one go. His eyes lit up. Yu scooped a bowl for the little cat girl. One taste, and the child's eyes went huge. She drained the whole thing. That night, I shared the entire pot with as many people as would come forward. They looked at me with something beyond fear now, something like awe. Not just because I'd killed the wolf man in seconds, but because I could create things they'd never imagined. Fire, soup, cooked food. The next morning, I woke up beside Yu. I'll admit, I'm a normal man with normal urges, and the night before, I'd finally let things go a little further between us. Not all the way, but a little. I stepped outside and found the whole tribe gathered around a body lying on the grass. The tiger ear leader. He hadn't survived his wounds. I felt genuine sadness. I remembered how he'd stood his ground against those lions, ready to die, fighting rather than run. Courage like that deserves respect. Following tradition, everyone worked together to collapse his cave over his body, burying him inside forever. When that was finished, the leopard man walked up to me with several other men. Before I could ask what they wanted, they all dropped to their knees and pressed their foreheads to the ground. The rest of the tribe followed, one after another, until every person in the settlement was kneeling. The leopard man raised his head and shouted, "Leader," and just like that, without planning it, without asking for it, I became the chief of this tribe. You. The little cat girl held up a clay bowl she'd shaped with her own hands, mud smeared across her cute face. It had been 7 days since I became leader. Shinyu had taken the girl under her wing, combed her hair with a bone comb, gave her a hot bath. Now the kid looked clean and bright. Shinyu patted her head approvingly. Good, she sounded just like me. The other 5 children crowded around showing their own clay pieces, and she praised every single one. Nearby, a dozen women sat quietly braiding bark rope the way I'd taught them. Shinyu kept glancing up at the crater rim, worried. I'd taken the men out hunting, and we hadn't come back yet. We were half a day's walk from the lake, crouching in tall grass, creeping toward a herd of wild cattle. Every man carried a spear. I'd spent the past several days teaching basic throwing, and they'd picked it up well enough. We had no choice but to go after these cattle. Summer was approaching, and the herds near our mountain had moved north. The animals had learned our area was dangerous. Wild cattle were enormous and mean-tempered. Even beast-shifting tribes avoided them. But I believed that with teamwork and spears, we could handle most large animals. 3 cattle had wandered away from the main herd to graze under a big tree. On my signal, the leopard man, I'd named him Jia, meaning swift, burst from the western grass with a yell and threw his spear. He missed, but that wasn't the point. The 3 cattle panicked and stampeded east, straight toward us. When they got close enough, I stood up. Throw. A dozen stone spears flew. At that range, even tough cowhide couldn't stop them. 2 bulls took multiple hits, but they kept running. We jumped out screaming and waving, which scared the cattle into turning west, away from their herd. That was exactly what I wanted. We chased them at a steady jog, no rush. Every time they tried to stop and rest, we threw more spears. Their wounds multiplied. They had to keep moving. By the time it was over, the sun had shifted well to the west. 1 bull escaped. We kept the other 2, a big one and a smaller one. The men cheered, looking at me with genuine admiration. I ordered them to carry the kills home, for men could handle the small bull. The big one took 6 or 7. We didn't make it back to the mountain before dark, so we camped under some large trees and lit fires. Wild animals stayed away. Fire terrified them down to their bones. Watch carefully. I showed everyone how to skin the small bull, keeping the hide as intact as possible. Cowhide was valuable. Treat it with wood ash, and you've got basic leather armor. I'd been a veterinarian in my past life, though I'd only ever dissected sheep and pigs in the lab, never cattle. I did my best. I pulled out the organs, separated the tendons. Butchering was another skill I needed to teach the tribe. Being leader meant endless things to manage. Good things grow slowly, like clouds drifting, like flowers opening. This tribe would develop one step at a time. I had no magic system, no outside help. Just patience. Jia stood beside me gazing out over the endless grassland. Wind rippled through the grass under a sky packed with stars. I love this feeling. Jia, did you have a tribe? I asked. He thought for a moment and shook his head. Leopard ear people were solitary. Their mothers raised them to adulthood, helped them attempt the beast transformation, then sent them away regardless of the outcome. Without beast powers, he couldn't survive alone against predators, so he joined this group of outcasts. Leader, teach me, he said. He wanted to learn to speak like I did, full sentences, real thoughts. I smiled. Okay. I pulled out my stone knife and started teaching him, beginning with tool names. He was eager to learn, a lot like Chinyu in that way. Though lately, Chinyu had gotten lazy. She kept sleeping all the time. Suddenly wolf howls cut through the night. Jia and I jumped up, scanning the grassland. The howling was close, a wild wolf pack in this area. We weren't too worried. Wolves wouldn't attack a group our size, especially near fire. Then we heard bear roars mixed with the howling. Everyone grabbed weapons. That roar sounded familiar. I called 4 men to follow me toward the noise. The bald bear man had been having the worst luck imaginable. After losing his stream territory to my old wolf tribe, he'd been chased out of a forest too. He wandered east, fighting wild animals along the way. The wooden spear I'd given him worked beautifully at first. His bear strength drove it right through anything. But eventually it broke, and he had to rely on his beast form alone. He found a stone hill with a natural cave up north. Before he could settle in, a saber-toothed tiger showed up. He was only a brown bear, not a cave bear, no match for that thing. Homeless again, he headed south toward the Ancestor Mountains, but while hunting for food, a wild wolf pack jumped him. They stole his kill and then chased him, from daytime straight through to nightfall. He'd already used up his transformation during the hunt, so he could only run. In a last desperate burst, he shifted one final time and killed one wolf with a swipe. That only made the pack angrier. His transformation ended. He stood bent over, hands on knees, gasping, wounds all over his body. Wolves lurked in the grass around him. The pack leader emerged, a massive gray wolf, over 2 meters long, white fangs gleaming. It had waited for him to exhaust himself. Classic Wolf King strategy. The bear man beat his chest one last time and roared, ready to charge to his death. The Wolf King lowered its head to pounce, and then shouting erupted from every direction. The Wolf King flinched. My men burst from the grass. The bear man spun around, saw my face, and his whole expression flooded with joy. "Wolf," he yelled. Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. He woke up inside something he'd never seen before. Walls made of sticks and branches, but not a cave. It was a lean-to shelter I'd built 2 days ago after bringing the hunting party home. The cave was too damp for someone with open wounds, so I'd had him carried here instead. This man was unbelievable. At least 7 or 8 bite wounds that would have killed anyone else. But his bear blood gave him insane recovery and immune strength. For any other bestier person, those were fatal injuries. For him, they were just injuries. He tried to smile. I brought him a bowl of meat broth. His eyes practically glowed green with hunger. If he didn't eat soon, starvation would have finished what the wolves couldn't. Nobody else dared go near him. Even Chunyu was too scared to feed him. So I did it myself. My people watched in amazement. Their leader, sitting calmly beside a man who could turn into a bear, spooning him soup. He ate 3 bowls. Color returned to his face. I set the bowl down and stood up. Rest and heal. As I walked away, he called out, "Wolf." I turned back and smiled. "My name is Mo. Just call me Mo." 2 wild cattle plus the greens Chunyu and the women gathered kept us fed for several days. I used that time to plan on the cave wall, a rough schedule of everything that needed doing. Every night before sleep, I taught Chunyu basic sewing with bone needles and bark thread. Once she got the hang of it, she could teach the other women. The ladies had braided plenty of bark rope already. Some of it I'd used to make a fishing net and try catching fish in the lake. For the men, I picked 2 sharp ones to learn pottery. The rest would practice spear throwing and stone tool shaping. Nobody got to sit around. But one thing I had to do personally, find salt. Without it, the little bit of sodium in meat wasn't enough. People got hungry fast, then weak. Salt was critical. Chunyu heard I was leaving again and looked worried. "How long?" 2 or 3 days. "Not far." I rubbed her head. My plan was to track mountain goats. They always know where the salt deposits are. It's a slow method, but reliable. 2 days later, I had the men drag a wooden raft we'd built down to the lake. The whole tribe gathered to watch. When the water was waist deep, we pushed it out. I climbed on, grabbed a long pole, and pushed off the bottom. The raft drifted toward the center of the lake. I stood up and shouted. Everyone cheered, though they had no idea what floating on water was good for. When the pole couldn't reach bottom anymore, I stopped and pulled out the bark rope fishing net. It wasn't big. I'd tied drilled stones and bone weights along the edges. I copied what I'd seen in videos and threw the net out as hard as I could. It sank fast. I felt the weight shift almost immediately. Something was in there. But when I hauled it up, the bottom hadn't closed properly. Most of the fish slipped out. All I got was one medium-sized fish. I tried again and again. Same problems. Then the bark rope started snapping. It wasn't strong enough. Big gaps opened in the net. I sat on the raft and caught my breath. I wasn't too disappointed. I had the theory right, just needed better materials. Practice and patience. I paddled back to shore with a wooden oar I'd prepared. Chunyu and the tribe came to meet me. I held up a clay jar with 3 fish inside. That was enough to get everyone excited. They couldn't believe I'd caught fish without going underwater. Back at camp, the bear man was gnawing on a fish head I'd left him. He called me over, agitated, pointing at his wounds. Some of them had started rotting. I understood. He needed medicine. "You want me to find herbs for you?" I said. He nodded frantically. He understood the word for grass at least. Then he picked up a stick and started drawing on the ground. I expected crude scratches, but what appeared was shockingly detailed. A perfect illustration of a plant, every leaf and stem in place. I stared. This huge, scary-looking man could draw beautifully. A tiger with the soul of an artist. He looked extremely pleased with my reaction. Apparently he'd been drawing since childhood, alone in the wilderness with no friends, sketching everything he saw with sticks in the dirt. I memorized the plant. "I'll go find it tomorrow. Stay put. You will bring you food." I warned him to behave. He nodded obediently. He knew everyone here carried spears now, and he didn't want to become a porcupine. I took 4 men on this trip, 2 wolf ears, 1 deer ear, and 1 cat ear. One of the wolf ear men was young, maybe 2 or 3 years older than me, probably kicked out recently. I named him Tsong. We checked the trap line we'd set on the mountainside 2 days before. Most traps were untouched. 2 had been triggered with a bit of blood, but whatever got caught had escaped. The traps needed improvement. But the last one had a lucky catch, a small squirrel lying at the bottom. I tossed it to Tsong to carry as trail food. A little further, we spotted a big bird's nest in a tree. The cat ear man scurried up like it was nothing and came back with 2 chicks and several eggs. I passed on the eggs. The others cracked them open and poured them straight into their mouths, looking deeply satisfied. This time I didn't lead them down the main slope. Instead, we went east, down the far side of our mountain into a valley, tracking mountain goats. The first day, we crossed one mountain. We ran into a terrifying python and some wild rabbits, but found nothing useful. The second valley was crawling with snakes and insects. Everyone stayed alert. One bite out here could mean death. The deer ear man stopped suddenly at a bush covered in strange round red flowers, ball-shaped, hollow inside. He sniffed them excitedly and started picking without waiting for my order. "Belly. Hurt. Eat," he explained with a grin. This was passed down knowledge from his deer ear tribe. These flowers helped with stomach pain. I didn't know the exact properties, but collecting medicine was never a waste. Everyone pitched in to gather them. I climbed a boulder to scan the surroundings. The eastern mountainside was covered in wild flowers, with dandelion seeds drifting everywhere. Dandelions were useful too, good for reducing inflammation. We'd already been digging them up around the lake and tossing them in our meat soup. Then a dark shape flashed across the ridge above. I caught a glimpse of horns before it vanished. I called everyone, and we sprinted after it. These bodies were far stronger than anything on Earth. We could jog for half a day without real trouble. We reached the summit, panting, and looked up. Before us rose an even taller peak. Its face split clean like a blade had cut it. A sheer wall of rock like a massive tombstone. "Leader, goat," Song pointed. There on a narrow ledge of the cliff face stood a grayish-yellow longhorned goat, similar to the wild goats I'd seen in documentaries about the Tibetan Plateau, except for its ash-colored fur. "Let's go." The gray mountain goat stood on the cliff face, staring down at us without fear. It was confident. No clumsy, 2-legged creature could climb up there. It was wrong. We threw our spears. Most missed, but one hit. The goat bleated and tumbled off the rock wall, crashing to the ground. The other goats panicked, scrambling higher up the cliff to escape. While my men grabbed the dead goat, I went to the rock face and chipped off a piece with my stone knife. I licked it, mostly bitter, with just a faint hint of salt. Disappointing, but there was something. I climbed higher and knocked off several chunks to take home. Maybe boiling them down would produce crystals. I wanted to keep going past this cliffblade peak, but Song and the others stopped me. Through gestures and broken words, they explained that the other side was a beast-shifting tribe's territory. These groups were everywhere. It seemed their intelligence combined with transformation abilities put them firmly at the top of the food chain. With limited supplies, I gave up and headed back. When we crossed 2 mountains and could see our home peak in the distance, Song spotted something. We all dropped into hiding. People were moving around the base of our mountain. I couldn't make out faces or ears from this distance. I pushed everyone to move fast. We needed to reach high ground before whoever it was started climbing. We sprinted to the pine forest on the mountainside and crouched behind boulders, watching the figures below work their way up. Lion ears and dog ears. Song's breathing went ragged. The dogs he meant weren't like earth dogs descended from wolves. These were a wild canine species every tribe despised, hyena ear people. In beast form, they were slightly smaller than wolves, with spotted brown-yellow fur and vicious protruding fangs. Extremely aggressive, with sharper noses than wolves. They specialized in stealing food from other tribes. I recognized faces among the lion ear men. 8 of them, the same ones I'd ambushed with spears when I saved the tiger leader. They brought a dozen hyena trackers to sniff us out. They were here for revenge. Song, run back and get everyone. He understood instantly and bolted up the mountain without looking back. I turned to the other 3. We hit them, throw our spears, then run into the forest. Understand? I pointed at the pine trees behind us. We'd reset our traps in there just days ago, perfect for slowing pursuers. I had them spread out behind different boulders. I carried 3 spears. Everyone else had 2, one for throwing, one for close combat if it came to that. The lead hyena was less than 50 meters away when its black nose started twitching. It sensed something, a low growl, and it shifted. The whole pack behind it fanned out and transformed, charging uphill. The lead hyena stopped at 30 meters, staring straight at my hiding spot. It stretched its neck, locked onto me. The moment it opened its jaws, I threw. It dodged, fast, incredibly fast. My spear hit nothing but dirt. Cold sweat ran down my back. These things had terrifying reflexes. But the others threw too, and the cat ear man actually hit one. The hyena's screech was awful, a grating, irritating sound. Run! I bolted for the pine forest. My 3 men followed. Behind us, snarling and barking exploded as over a dozen hyenas gave chase. Their burst speed was way beyond what I'd expected. The barking got closer shockingly fast. We barely made the tree line. Even inside the forest, they didn't slow down. The cat ear man was about to be caught. Without hesitating, he leaped onto a pine trunk and scrambled up like a squirrel. 2 hyenas circled below, barking. When they realized he was too high, they shifted back to human form. They'd evolved enough to climb trees. The instant they went human, the cat ear man threw his spear straight down. It punched clean through one climber's neck. The man dropped dead. The second hyena man stumbled back in fear. He saw the cat ear man had no more spears and called 2 others over to climb after him. But the cat ear man jumped to another tree, vanishing into the thick branches. These people had clearly never dealt with a cat before. Meanwhile, I was sprinting through the forest, leaping over a patch of ground I'd memorized, one of our trap markers. I turned and grinned at the 3 hyenas chasing me. One of them surged forward with a burst of speed. Its front paw hit the camouflaged pit. The ground gave way and it plunged in, howling as the sharpened stakes caught it. The other 2 skidded to a stop, confused. While they hesitated, I threw a spear. Another yelp. From other directions, more screams echoed through the forest. Our traps were working. The surviving hyenas panicked and grouped together, howling for each other. The lion ear men caught up behind them. Their leader, the one I'd call the Lion King, grabbed a hyena by the scruff with one hand. Track them, the hyena whimpered. Another one spoke up. King, our people are dying. The Lion King counted heads. From over a dozen, only 7 hyenas remained. He looked around at the dark, silent pines. Then he threw the hyena to the ground and walked to one of our trap sites. He peered down at the dying hyena in the pit, then pulled my spear from a dead body nearby. He ran his big hand along the bloody shaft. Something changed in his eyes, a spark of understanding, of interest. Then he hurled the spear with terrifying force. It buried itself deep into a pine trunk 20 meters away. His men stared in shock. The Lion King smiled. He ordered his people to collect every spear they could find. He wasn't going to chase us today. He'd go home, study these weapons, and come back. Song arrived with reinforcements just as my group of 4 met up on the far side of the forest. I was praising the cat ear man. Cool under pressure, quick thinking, a natural fighter worth investing in. Jia looked us over, relieved nobody was hurt. I watched the trail behind us. Nobody followed. I sent the cat ear man to scout, and he confirmed the enemy had left. But one thing made my stomach tighten. All our spears were gone. Every single one we'd thrown. The Lion King had taken them. He now knew what spears were. He'd felt their weight and balance. A man that strong, leading warriors who could transform into lions, armed with our own weapon design. That was a serious threat. I thought about the cowhides drying back at camp. We needed armor. The age of just hunting and gathering was over. If we couldn't defend ourselves, nothing else mattered. Making stone axes was brutal work. 3 men ground away at selected rocks day and night. I carved a handle from an arm-thick branch, burned a groove into it with animal hair and grass as fuel, then chiseled it wider with a stone tool. 2 days for 3 axes. I taught the men to chop pine trees and put the deer-ear man in charge of lumber. Then I went to spend time with the women, not for the reason you'd think. On the far side of the lake, Chinyu and the women had found a thorny vine while picking berries. It was flexible and tough. I got an idea. I lined up thumb-thick sticks side by side, wrapped thorny vine around them tightly, then covered both sides with cowhide the women had started tanning. More thorny vine wound around the edges, 2 holes punched through the middle, cowhide straps threaded through for a handle. Why not carve a proper wooden shield? Because my stone tools couldn't split planks from a log. That would take forever. The women picked it up fast. Chinyu copied my design and produced one herself. I named it the Thorny Cowhide Shield. I grabbed a finished shield, about half a meter wide, 1 meter tall, and stood in the field. I spotted the little cat girl chasing bugs in the grass with the other kids. I whistled. She looked up with her permanently serious face and trotted over. I handed her a rock. Hit me. She didn't understand. I backed up 5 meters, raised the shield, and yelled. Throw it. She shrugged, tossed the stone twice in her palm, then threw with perfect form. The rock smacked into my thigh. I hissed in pain. This kid was way stronger than any child her age on Earth. Aim for the head, I shouted, rubbing my leg. She hesitated, worried about hurting me, but I insisted. She picked up another stone and let it fly. It cracked against the shield. Test passed. Next I had Chinyu throw a spear. She was terrified. Rabbits are born timid, but I made her do it. The spear thudded into the shield. Pass. Then I called the cat-ear man. He threw from 20 meters. First shot missed. Second one hit dead center. I moved closer for more tests. That's when I noticed the little cat girl standing right beside me. Before I could tell her to move back, she spoke up in her soft voice. That thing. Put it on wood. I blinked, then laughed out loud. She was right. I could just hang the shield on a post instead of holding it myself. Why was I thinking like a caveman? My brain was going soft. Stupid rabbit girl. Her nightly activities were draining my intelligence. Starting tomorrow, abstinence. Chinyu had no idea she'd just been blamed for my declining IQ. I ruffled the cat girl's head. Smart kid. Final test results. My own full-strength spear throw only pierced the cowhide shield from within 5 meters. That wasn't because the shield was amazing. It was because stone spears just aren't that powerful. I increased patrols. The cat-ear man was assigned permanently to the pine forest as a lookout. No more hunting duties for him. The lion ear's revenge never came. While waiting, I trained 5 men in shield and spear combat. Basic moves, shield up, thrust forward. Simple but effective. During this time, Chinyu found the herbs the bear man needed. I dried them and stored them in a clay jar. I was slowly building a medicine collection, recording what each plant did. Between my knowledge and what various tribe members remembered, we had 7 plants with confirmed uses, but food was still the top priority. Hunting alone wouldn't sustain us through winter. I needed to try raising animals, and I still hadn't solved the salt problem. Those gray-black rocks I brought back, I boiled them, filtered out the grit, boiled again. At the very end, I actually got a tiny amount of crude salt crystals. But a pot of salted fish soup got mostly consumed by the bear man. I let him have it. I needed him healthy. And it worked. He was already jogging along the lakeshore. The night before a hunt, Chinyu sat in our cave making grass sandals by firelight. The women had all been working on footwear lately. Our beast ear skin was tougher than normal human skin, and years of barefoot walking had built up thick calluses, but sharp objects still drew blood. I'd been pushing everyone to stay cleaner too. Early summer had arrived, and I bathed in the lake regularly. The others didn't love bathing, but at least they'd rinse their mouths after eating and pick meat from between their teeth. Tomorrow, going down? Chinyu asked quietly, her ears drooping. Yeah, but just nearby. Won't go far, She kept working, not looking up. Something was off. I scooted closer and grabbed her fluffy little tail. She made a small sound and turned those red, watery eyes on me. What's wrong? She hesitated, then asked softly. You won't mate with me. I froze. The women say, she continued, same cave. Must mate. I started laughing, then stopped myself. By their standards, she was an adult. I couldn't exactly say she looked too young. She waited for an answer. When I said nothing, she turned back to her sandals, ignoring me. Then two arms reached around her from behind. The next morning I stepped out of the cave and stretched with a groan. She was far more terrifying than I'd imagined. Nearly broke my back. Rabbits are truly fearsome creatures. I whistled. Within moments, 10 people assembled on the grass below. 5 carried shields and spears with stone hammers or axes at their waists. The other 5 each carried 3 spears on their backs. Move out. Luck was on our side. We found a rare herd of mountain deer right at the base of the hill. I wasn't alone anymore. No matter how impressive the lead stag's antlers looked, they couldn't stop 11 armed hunters working together. We killed 4 deer and captured a live fawn that had just been weaned. I carried it back to camp over my shoulders. 3 days later, after a rainstorm, a rainbow arced over the lake. The children played on the shore, taking turns petting the little deer on a leash. The fawn's leg had been broken during the hunt, trampled by panicking adults in its own herd, not by us. I couldn't set the bone, but as long as someone fed it, it would grow, and then we'd eat it. Good investment. During those 3 days, Chinyu and I didn't leave our cave much. Call it a honeymoon. Call it a vacation. She was enthusiastic, especially when I grabbed her ears. Every morning the foxskin bedding had to be hung out to dry, but I couldn't let comfort make me soft. I reminded myself, stay alert, stay prepared. Time for my second salt expedition. Food supplies were solid. The men had planted traps all over the mountain and pine forest. Most of the tribe could stay home with decent defenses. I only took 2 people this time, the deer-ear man and the bear man, who I'd finally named. I called him Chuamo. Why that name? Pure mischief on my part. It sounded close to my own name, Chinamo. The bear man was delighted. Having a name that resembled his friend's made him grin ear to ear. The 3 of us headed west with weapons and supplies. 2 days out, 2 days back. We couldn't stay away too long. If someone raided our home while we were gone, we'd be in real trouble. Clear skies, beautiful day. On a grassy mountainside, a few bighorn sheep were running for their lives. A spear flew from behind. It went clean through one sheep's entire body, turning it into a giant meat skewer. I looked at Chuemo whooping and hollering and had to admit it. You're strong. His effective throwing range was over 50 or 60 meters. The only limit was the stone spearhead. Beyond that distance, it lost killing power. With practice, this bear man would be a devastating weapon on any battlefield without even needing to transform. Chuemo thumped his chest and ran to claim his prize. Deer Ming, that was the name I'd given the deer-ear man, walked behind me carrying a woven backpack. We were doing well on day 1. Besides some medicinal herbs, we'd already caught 2 colorful pheasants. Deer Ming, you're making fire tonight. I patted his shoulder. He was a thoughtful guy, and I'd been giving him increasingly complex tasks on purpose. He took the fire-making duty as a sign of trust, which it was. We found a good spot to camp. I coached Deer Ming through the bow drill, while Chumo worked on skinning the sheep with his stone knife. He was trying to copy my technique. Cut a small hole near the leg, blow air under the skin to separate it. Then his knife snapped. He grumbled and wandered off to find a better stone. He came back, carrying something that made me do a double take. A dark green rock the size of a football. Jade? I blurted out. Chuamo had already raised it over his head, ready to smash it for sharp pieces. Mo can't smash? Go ahead. In my old world, I'd have been thrilled. That was a fortune in jade. Here it was just another rock. Though actually, jade is brittle and breaks into very sharp edges. Historically, people made jade blades and weapons before metal came along. The jade shattered. Chuamo picked up a fragment, felt the edge, sliced through the grass at his feet like butter. His eyes lit up. No sharpening needed. He went straight back to the sheepskin with his new jade cutter. I collected the remaining pieces, put 2 larger chunks in Deer Ming's basket, and sat down to carefully shape one small piece with my miniature stone hammer. A cheer from Deer Ming. He'd made fire on his own for the first time. Roasting lamb filled the hillside with an incredible smell. Small predators lurked in the nearby bushes, but wouldn't come close. They could smell bear on Chuamo. I chewed on a leg while keeping watch. That's when I noticed a figure on the slope below. I nudged Chuamo with my foot and lifted my chin. He squinted. Can't see. Bear eyes. Famously terrible. Deer Ming couldn't see clearly either. Deer vision wasn't much better. Even in human form, their animal bloodlines affected their senses. Mo, I'll go. No? If they don't come closer, we don't bother them. Whoever was out there alone was probably a beast shifter. No point picking a fight we might not win. We finished eating and moved on, tracking herbivore trails and mapping the area. After we left, I'm sure someone crept to our campsite. I'd felt those eyes on us the whole time. That night, my wolf vision picked up a faint glow behind a boulder uphill. Still there, I muttered. Chuamo growled. Let me. No, I pressed his shoulder down. Whoever it was had been watching us all day. We might be on their territory. Maybe I could learn something. I had Deer Ming build another fire and roast more meat. The fire was like a lonely lamp in the vast, dark wilderness. Strange animal calls echoed from the mountains, but nothing dared approach the light. The roast lamb smelled irresistible. I stared at the boulder where I'd spotted that faint glow, grabbed a chunk of meat, and threw it as hard as I could, about 50 or 60 paces uphill. Then I sat down and waited. Deer Ming was exhausted and fell asleep. Chuamo and I, two nocturnal predators, stayed wide awake. Bears and wolves come alive at night. When Deer Ming opened his eyes near dawn, his body hair stood on end. Someone was squatting right in front of him, gnawing on a rib bone. He tensed, then saw me sitting there smiling at the stranger. He let out a breath. It was a leopard-ear girl, but different from Jia back home. Her ears were small and grayish-white, and she had a big, fluffy gray-white cylindrical tail. Snow leopard bloodline. I'd lured her in with 3 pieces of thrown meat over the course of the night. She'd circled us warily for a long time before gathering the courage to approach. Up close, I could see why she'd risked it. Her canine teeth were all gone, broken or knocked out. She was filthy, weak, probably unable to hunt anymore. She didn't say a word, just ate silently, ravenously. When Deer Ming sat up, she grabbed the rib bone in her teeth and bolted into the darkness. I shot Deer Ming an annoyed look. He scratched his head sheepishly. Leader, you sleep. I'll watch. I dozed until dawn. The snow leopard girl was gone. We pushed deeper southwest into the Ancestor Mountains. After climbing over a granite peak, we found a canyon at least 34 paces wide with a stream running through it. I crouched at the water's edge and looked north. This stream might connect to the area where I'd lived in my old cave. We'd traveled quite a distance. Leader, Deer Ming whispered. Up the narrow path on the north side of the canyon, several bighorn sheep appeared. Strangely, they didn't run. They just stood there watching us. Then more appeared behind them. And more. Finally, several tall, muscular figures emerged. Men with sheep ears and small curved horns on their heads. Rock sheep tribe, 7 of them. My 3 instinctively backed toward the eastern slope, ready to bolt if things went wrong. We stared at each other in silence. 3 sheep ear men walked toward us. Their leader was a wall of muscle, shirtless, tin skin gleaming. He stopped about 30 paces away and barked, My territory. Leave. Chuamo didn't care about being outnumbered by herbivores. He snarled and transformed into a brown bear, roaring at full volume. The sheep herd stumbled backward. The men's faces darkened. I stepped forward. I'm looking for salt. Once I find it, I'll leave. They froze. My fluent speech caught them off guard. They'd only heard that kind of language from powerful tribe shamans. The leader spoke again, confused. What? Salt? I smiled and pulled a piece of the dark rock from Deer Ming's pack. I tossed it over. The man picked it up, sniffed it, then instinctively licked it. Understanding crossed his face. He seemed puzzled. Meat eaters rarely sought salt the way his people did. Then his eyes flicked involuntarily toward the deeper part of the canyon. I caught it immediately. That's where the salt was. These sheep people came here specifically to lick salt deposits. No rush, then. Even if they refused to help, I could wait until they left and explore the canyon myself. I turned to lead my men away. Trade, the man said suddenly. I searched my memories and found the word. My Wolf King father had done trades before, exchanging things with other tribes. I nodded. The sheep leader inched closer, still nervous about Chuamo's bear form. He struggled through a long explanation with words and gestures. Basically, There was a leopard ear predator in this area that threatened them whenever they came for salt. Deal with it, and he'd share the salt source. I thought of the little snow leopard girl from last night, toothless, starving, desperate. She was probably the terrifying predator they meant. These big tough sheep men were scared of a girl who couldn't even bite anymore. I didn't hesitate. I smiled. Deal. The massive sheep herd marched deeper into the canyon with us trailing behind. The sheep ear leader had basically hired us as bodyguards. Before long, a waterfall appeared, a silver ribbon pouring down the cliff face, at least 5 or 6 meters wide. The sheep people grew tense. 7 or 8 sheep ear warriors fanned out on both sides of the herd, scanning the canyon walls for danger. Then the sheep did something amazing. They leaped onto boulders flanking the waterfall and disappeared straight through the water curtain. A cave behind the waterfall. I couldn't help thinking of the old Chinese legend, the water curtain cave. This was the most dangerous moment for the herd. They had to enter single file, stretching into a long, vulnerable line. A perfect time for a predator to strike. I was sure the cave held what I wanted, but I didn't rush in. I sat down with Chew Mo and chewed dried meat, watching carefully. Sure enough, I spotted a sneaky figure lurking in the rocks above. The sheep moved fast. Soon they started hopping back out through the waterfall, landing on the boulder platforms and jumping down to drink from the stream below. Just when everything seemed smooth, a gray-white blur exploded from the grass above the boulders. A snow leopard, snarling, pouncing on a sheep that had just landed. Instant chaos. Chew Mo moved. He transformed into his bear form and let out a roar that shook the canyon walls, charging straight at the boulders. The snow leopard took one look at the incoming bear and abandoned her prey, bolting away. Chew Mo shifted back, grinning like an idiot. I'd told him beforehand. Just scare her, nothing more. I'd guessed right. It was the same snow leopard girl from the night before. As she ran, she turned back and gave me a look. Hurt, betrayed, resentful. She couldn't understand why meat-eating predators like us would protect a bunch of sheep. The sheep ear leader approached us afterward, closer than before, maybe 3 or 4 meters. He nodded and gave us a small, genuine smile. Deal fulfilled. After the herd left, Deer Ming looked confused. Leader, why? I patted his shoulder. He was smart enough to figure out the sheep came here specifically for salt. He could have tracked the canyon himself to find this place. You'll understand later. The real reason was bigger. I needed allies. The sheep herd roamed widely, controlled by their sheep ear leaders. They had value, especially when I thought about animal husbandry down the road. Help them now, build a relationship, and reap benefits later. Let's go inside. Minutes later, the 3 of us stood in a damp, misty cave behind the waterfall. The walls were coated in white frost, salt crystals. We chipped off chunks with our tools. Deer Ming couldn't resist licking the wall directly. The cave wasn't wide, maybe 4 or 5 paces, narrowing as it went deeper. We didn't need to explore further. We had what we came for. We left immediately and marched hard toward home. By my count, we'd been gone since the evening of day 2. It would take at least another full day to reach the lake. I sensed someone following us the whole way. I didn't react, just kept walking. We pushed until deep into the night before Deer Ming hit his limit, and we had to stop. This time, roast pheasant sprinkled with crushed salt. The taste was incredible, a little bitter still, but after weeks of bland, stinking meat, I nearly cried with satisfaction. When Chew Mo and Deer Ming closed their eyes, a shadow appeared at the edge of our firelight. The snow leopard girl, staring at me with fury in her eyes, like she might attack any second. I tossed a piece of chicken toward her. She wasn't really going to fight. She hadn't even shifted. She sat down and ate. One piece wasn't enough. She crept closer. I threw another. Then another. Piece by piece, she ended up sitting 3 or 4 meters across the fire from me, eyes half closed, chewing contentedly. I stood up and walked toward her. She hissed, baring her remaining teeth, her fluffy tail swishing in warning. But she didn't run. Stop hunting those sheep, I said gently. It's dangerous. I could see fresh bruises on her face, a swollen lip, another tooth missing. The sheep ear warriors had beaten her. She turned her head away and crunched the chicken bones loudly. I softened my voice. Come with us. I'll give you food. She paused mid-bite. I could see the hesitation. Then she dropped the half-eaten bone and bolted into the darkness. Solitary predator types rarely accept group life. She probably feared I'd enslave her. I wasn't too disappointed. Chuamo had been an exception. I couldn't expect every loner to be like him. But the next day, walking home, I realized I was wrong. She was still following us. Quietly, at a distance, but following. Back at the lake, I was relieved to find the lioneers hadn't attacked while I was gone. Maybe they decided we weren't easy prey. First priority, processing the salt. I broke up the rock salt, boiled it in water, let the grit and sediment settle, poured off the liquid, and boiled it again until crystals formed. It was still crude, no cloth for filtering, no paper, no way to remove harmful minerals. But our bodies were tough. Ancient humans survived on rough salt for thousands of years. I could handle it for now. I stored the salt in clay jars inside my cave and didn't hand it out to everyone immediately. Instead, I built a reward system. Work hard, fight bravely, contribute to the tribe, earn salt. The ones who'd come hunting got their share first. Deer Ming and Chu Mo each got a small jar. Once people tasted salted fish soup, everything changed. The flavor was on another level. Word spread fast. Everyone suddenly worked harder, knowing salt was the prize. After one day of rest, I started my first real construction project in this world, a wooden shelter. Without metal tools, building anything from wood was painfully slow. Stone axes could only do so much. I was in the middle of chopping when the little cat girl marched up to me with a group of pale-faced children. They were all talking at once, too scared to form proper sentences. I set down my axe. "Cat, you tell me." I tapped her forehead with my finger. She was calmer than the rest. She swallowed hard. "Leopard deer." "Beast person." She pointed across the lake. Then I remembered. I'd completely forgotten about the snow leopard girl. She must have followed us all the way home. I rubbed the cat girl's head. "It's okay. Take me to see." On the west side of the lake, there were a few big spruce trees where the kids liked to play. They'd collected piles of pretty stones and even made little clay sculptures. I was impressed, playing and building skills at the same time. I sat under the trees with the little cat girl and started a fire to roast some deer meat. Sure enough, the snow leopard girl appeared on the crater rim above, crouching there, staring down at us with hungry eyes. I waved her over. She eyed me, saw only the small cat girl beside me, and decided it was safe enough. She came down and ate quietly. The cat girl watched her carefully, then noticed the leopard girl's chest. She looked down at her own flat body. I caught the envious expression on her little face. I didn't ask the leopard girl's opinion about anything. I just started building a small shelter right there under the spruce trees. The cat girl helped me tie bark ropes. The leopard girl lay on a pile of rocks watching lazily. By the afternoon, the tent was done. A simple triangle frame covered with leafy branches and lake moss for waterproofing. I had the cat girl fetch a sheepskin. I laid grass inside and spread the skin on top. "Yours," I told the leopard girl, pointing at the shelter. She acted aloof, like she didn't think much of it. But after I walked away with the cat girl, she crawled inside. The comfort hit her immediately. She smiled and fell asleep. 20 days passed. Summer heat settled in. People splashed in the lake. And on the shore stood 2 wooden cabins, my first real construction project in this world. Each one was about 9 square meters. I'd created a simple measuring stick, a piece of wood I cut to roughly 1 meter based on my memory. It wasn't perfectly accurate, but it didn't need to be. The men just matched their lumber to my stick and cut accordingly. That stick became our tribe's first ruler. The walls were made from 4-meter logs, 1 palm wide, with 1 meter buried underground for stability. The floor was a layer of arm-thick poles with baked mud packed into the gaps, topped with animal skins. The roof gave me trouble at first. Flat roofs didn't drain rain. So I built a triangular peak on top, like a tent, covered in wood, hides, and moss. I even built a small fireplace inside, copying what I remembered from survival videos in my old life. It actually worked pretty well. 1 cabin was mine. The other belonged to the 6 children for now. Nobody argued about the arrangement. I was struggling with another project, a bow. I'd been trying to make a longbow using cattle sinew as a bowstring and jade chips as arrowheads. The results were disappointing. My best arrow only flew about 34 meters. The wood was wrong, the string was wrong. I needed more time. "Why couldn't I get a cheat system?" I yelled, flopping onto the grass. Every novel I'd ever written gave the hero a magical system. Where was mine? Shin Yu's face appeared above me, upside down. "Mo, they're back." The hunting party had returned. I'd handed field leadership to Jia after leading several hunts myself. I had too many things to manage as chief. Jia hadn't let me down. 2 successful hunts in a row with good hauls. He came to me holding 2 greenish-gray wild chickens. Leader, alive? I was pleased. I'd specifically asked him to bring live ones. Our little farm was growing. 1 limping fawn, 3 goats in a pen I'd built. The goats kept trying to escape, but they always got caught. Once they bred, their offspring would be tamer. The fawn was actually well-behaved. Run into any other tribes? I asked. Jia shook his head and thumped his chest. Leader, if we did, we're not scared. His speech had improved dramatically. In his free time, he'd been gathering everyone on the grass for group language lessons, starting with tool names and working up to full sentences. The whole tribe was learning to talk properly. I squatted down and yanked the flight feathers from both chickens' wings. They screeched. Jia and Chinyu stared, confused. For breeding, they can't have flight feathers. That was step 1. Every chick they hatched would get the same treatment. Eventually, I'd build a roofed chicken coop. I thought summer would pass quietly. Then Mo came back from a solo hunt with bad news. Cave bears are coming. Cave bears. The ancient ancestors of brown bears and black bears, not fully extinct in this world. Every summer, they wandered south from the north, looking for mates to continue their bloodline. Some had evolved into beastier people with human forms and higher intelligence, making them even more dangerous. When cave bears roamed the area, hunting became nearly impossible. Herbivore herds fled. Food got scarce. I didn't want to fight with cave bears. I wasn't even confident against the lion-ear tribe, let alone creatures whose hides could probably stop our spears. In my old tribe's memories, the wolf-ear people always ran west during cave bear season, hunting elsewhere. The mountains have plenty of food, I told the tribe. We don't need to go down to the plains. We'll be fine. Then Jia came to me with worse news. When cave bears come, they demand people. For sacrifice. What? He explained slowly. The cave bears didn't just come for mating season. Their old shamans came too, to perform transformation rituals for their young. And those rituals required sacrifices from nearby tribes, animals and people. Specifically, people who'd failed their own beast transformations. After the ritual, the cave bears ate the sacrificed people alive. Every year, this tribe had sent several hunted animals and 2 failed beast shifters as tribute. The ones sent never came back. I sat there for a long moment, processing this. So that's what this was. Protection money. A primitive shakedown. Pay up or get destroyed. The beast-ear version of a protection racket. I talked with Jia and learned the full story. This tribe's territory existed because of a deal made years ago. The first leader had been a failed cave bear tribesman. His father, a real cave bear, had scared off the surrounding beast-shifting tribes so his reject son could survive. In gratitude, the first leader voluntarily sent tribute every year. Over time, it became tradition. After the leadership passed to non-bear people, the demands grew heavier. What started as a thank you gift became a nightmare. I sat quietly for a long time, watching my people work and laugh around the lake. Then I said, traditions exist to be broken. This ends now. Jia didn't fully understand, but I could see hope flicker in his eyes. Mo didn't bother thinking about it. He'd decided long ago, wherever I went, he followed. But I wasn't stupid. We couldn't fight cave bears head-on. After hours of thinking in my cabin, I reached a conclusion. The best strategy was to leave. Honestly, I'd never loved this crater lake as a permanent home anyway. Real civilization grows beside rivers. Better water, better soil, better land for farming. But convincing everyone to abandon the only safe place they'd known? That was delicate. My authority was high, but not absolute. Not yet. I was deep in thought when I realized the cat girl had fallen asleep on my lap. Chinyu walked in, saw her there, and scooped her up with a jealous pout. The cat girl made a confused noise that snapped me out of my planning. What are you doing? I asked. It's dark, Chinyu said pointedly. I noticed she was right. Night had fallen. I smiled. My rabbit girl was in heat basically year-round, and honestly, I was getting worn out. Let the cat sleep here tonight, I said. Chinyu wasn't happy, but she didn't argue. The cat girl yawned, hopped lightly back into my lap, and passed out again. Chinyu sat across from me and brought up something interesting. The ancestor mountains. Other side. My tribe. What about your tribe? Someone left with me. Same time. He disappeared. She pointed south, past the mountain range. I leaned forward. You crossed the mountains from the other side? She nodded and counted on her fingers, struggling with numbers as usual despite my lessons. 6. No, 7 days. I crossed 6 or 7 days for a little rabbit girl, alone, through wilderness. If she could make it, our whole tribe certainly could. I asked about the land on the other side. Her memories were mostly of living in a hillside cave with her mother and family. But one thing made her eyes light up. Fruit. Food. So much. She started drooling, just remembering the fruit groves she'd passed through. I patted her back and listened, but my mind was already forming a plan. Before we could build anything real, we needed to get away from this side of the mountains. The open wilderness was too dangerous, especially in winter. The next morning, I took a team of 11 down the mountain to scout the plains. Jia and the hunters had become skilled spear throwers. 6 carried cowhide shields. Jia and I wore leather vests. We were starting to look like a real fighting force. Against the lion-ear tribe, I now felt we could hold our own. But the plains below were empty. Not a single herd in sight. Just as Jia had warned, every summer when cave bears arrived, the animals fled. We walked north for half a day and reached a river, 3 or 4 meters wide. Some antelope lingered near the bank. They sensed us and leaped across the water. Our spears flew before they got far. One antelope went down, bristling with shafts. I wasn't looking at the antelope, though. On the far bank, a yellowish-brown rock was slowly crawling toward the water. A giant land tortoise, nearly a meter across. I pulled my stone axe from my belt and hurled it. It cracked against the shell right where the head had been, but the tortoise sucked its head in just in time and froze. One of my men dove into the river, crossed in 3 strokes, and pinned the tortoise with his foot. He stabbed down with his spear, and the shaft snapped against the shell. He grabbed his stone hammer in frustration, ready to smash, but I yelled for him to stop. Just bring it over. He heaved the massive tortoise across the river to us. Meanwhile, the others were carrying the antelope across when a trumpeting blast split the air. The ground started trembling. Elephants. Jia's face went tight. Leader, we run. I didn't move. I stood with one foot on the tortoise and looked north. A stampede of animals was charging toward the river, all kinds of beasts running together. Behind them, a dark line stretched across the horizon. As it got closer, the line resolved into enormous shapes. Not mammoths. These were elephants covered in white fur. Massive creatures, shoulder height over 3 meters, bodies 5 or 6 meters long. A whole herd of them. Jia, have these ever come before? No. He shook his head. Everyone was coiled to run. I was wondering whether elephant ear people existed when several leopards sprinted past us, ignoring us completely in their panic. The ground shook harder. Then I noticed, in front of the elephant herd, a group of people were driving animals ahead of them, hurting the chaos. Leader, fall back, I finally ordered. We retreated 100 meters and crouched in the tall grass to watch. From the west came a thunderous bear roar. I sent Jia and the main group further back, then took 2 men to go see what was happening. A few hundred meters away, on the south bank, a colossal brown bear was facing down 2 white-furred elephants. This bear was at least 4 meters tall, standing upright. It towered over the elephants by a full head. But the elephants were longer and heavier, 5 or 6 meters of solid mass. They stared the cave bear down, clearly trying to push it out. Several elephants lost patience. They splashed across the river and charged. The cave bear's body instantly shrank. It shifted back into a massive, hairy man and turned to run, right toward us. In human form, even a cave bear man could outrun elephants. They gave up the chase. Then the 2 elephants that had been facing off with the bear also shrank down. They became 2 women, tall, at least 2 meters each. They calmly reached out and stroked the agitated elephants beside them, soothing them. Elephant ear people. Women. And they just chased off a cave bear like it was nothing. I didn't stick around to watch the elephants. The cave bear man had run to within 100 meters of us, facing north, watching the white-furred giants. I considered the situation. According to Chu Mo, beast shifting had daily limits. No more than 3 transformations, each lasting roughly the length of a hunt. Bigger forms meant shorter duration and fewer shifts. If this cave bear could still transform, we'd be in trouble. I was about to leave when wolf howls erupted from the west. On a boulder in the open grassland stood a man draped in wolf skin, his face painted in blood-red patterns. The wolf tribe shaman. My old tribe was here too. Something big was brewing on these plains. The cave bear man heard the wolves and bolted south. I took my men and got out of there. That night, back at the lake, I told the cat ear man to keep a close watch on the plains. If there was an opportunity to gain something from whatever was about to happen, I wanted to know. Chinyu had dinner ready, mushroom meat soup. The locals knew which mushrooms were safe, so I didn't worry about poisoning. A shadow appeared on my rooftop. I didn't flinch. Only one person did that. Mion. Wanna come eat? The snow leopard girl had a name now. She'd told me herself, which meant she was smarter than Chumo, who needed me to name him. She wore a hide wrap over her chest and a short grass skirt the children had woven for her as a gift. Not eating, she said, stubborn as always. Chinyu shot her a look. My rabbit girl didn't mind the cat girl, but she didn't trust Mion. She'd caught me staring at the leopard girl's chest more than once. I smiled and let it go. I figured Mion was just bored. Then she spoke up. You should leave. The 100 tribes are going to fight. I looked up, serious now. What do you know? Tell me. She hesitated, then explained. The shamans of every tribe. They're going to attack the cave bears. I knew that solitary beast shifters like her and Chumo visited their tribal shamans once a year to offer tribute. Both had mentioned it. Your shaman told you this? She nodded. Then added, run. The lions are coming for you. I laughed coldly. The lion ear tribe, still holding their grudge. While all the tribes planned to attack the cave bears, those bastards wanted to use the chaos to settle their score with us. I wasn't the type to sit and wait for death. Understood. It was time to find a new home, somewhere my people wouldn't get caught in the crossfire. Deep in the night, I was jolted awake. Chinyu's eyes snapped open at the same moment. Shouting outside, I grabbed my spear and burst through the door. Chumo came running. The forest, full of wolves. I could already hear howling from the pine forest on the mountainside. The cat ear man hadn't come back to report. Chumo kept talking, breathless. Cat is trapped. They have him stuck in a tree. I whistled. 15 men assembled in moments. A small, nimble shadow followed behind us too. Mion. Near the tree line, a figure came sprinting toward us. The cat ear man, bleeding. Leader, careful. Circle formation, I barked. 6 shield bearers formed an outer ring. The rest stood inside with spears raised, facing the forest. We'd been drilling 2 formations in our spare time. This defensive circle and a line with shields in front and spears behind. Simple, but it was all we needed. Rustling filled the darkness. Gray-white wolves emerged, at least 20 or 30. The lead wolf was unmistakable. My blood recognized him before my eyes did. The Wolf King, my father, and behind him, 2 pairs of eyes I also knew, my younger brother and sister. The wolves circled us slowly. The Wolf King sensed a familiar scent and dropped his beast form, standing as a cold-faced man. Come out. I pushed through the shield wall, spear in hand. His eyes flickered with something complicated when he saw my face. You? Still alive, I felt nothing for him. No fear, no respect, no warmth. My territory. Leave or die. Every wolf froze. They couldn't believe the reject they'd thrown away was not only alive but leading these outcasts, and speaking in full, fluent sentences while doing it. The Wolf King's surprise turned to fury. He bared his teeth and started to shift, ready to slaughter the failures around me and teach me that even leading a pack of rejects didn't give me the right to challenge a real Wolf King. Before he could transform, a wolf lunged from behind him. My brother. My men raised their spears to throw, but I shouted, "Nobody move." I gripped my spear with both hands, not to stab, but to swing. As my brother leaped at me in wolf form, I swung the shaft upward like a bat and cracked it across his belly. He slammed into the ground. Before he could get up, my foot was on his skull. Little brother, forget beast form. Even if you could turn into a god, you'd still be my little brother. It happened so fast the wolves barely processed it. They started snarling. My father's eyes went wide. I'd put down a transformed wolf with a stick. 2 more wolves that had crept close burst forward. Classic wolf tactics. Wait for the target's guard to drop, then ambush from the flanks. Throw. Jet didn't wait for my command. 7 or 8 spears flew through the darkness. Both wolves collapsed before they even left the ground, shafts jutting from their bodies, howling as blood pooled beneath them. I glanced at the dying wolves, then locked eyes with my father again. This time I saw fear. He hadn't expected this. The tribal shamans had given him a job: capture the lake outcasts for a blood sacrifice before the big battle with the cave bears. He'd already lost 4 men in the pine forest. Now 2 more lay bleeding out. Losses like these were rare, even in full territorial wars between tribes. A smaller wolf stepped forward and shifted, a young woman who looked a bit like me. My sister. She put on her most pitiful face. Brother. Let our brother go. I grinned. I remembered her well. In this body's childhood memories, I'd caught small animals and always shared them with her. She was an expert at playing helpless, at making people feel sorry for her. But I also remembered the day they drove me out. My brother under my foot had shown a flicker of hesitation that day. This sister? She'd watched me leave without a shred of guilt. I slowly raised my spear and pointed it at my brother's head. My father and sister both went pale. No. I drove the spear into the ground right beside my brother's head, close enough to feel the wind. Every wolf exhaled at once. I lifted my foot off him. The blow to his belly had knocked him out of beast form. He looked up at me, and our eyes met. I'd read him right. When they drove me out, he was the only one whose eyes held worry. And just now, he'd lunged before our father could shift, not aiming for my throat, but trying to pin me down before things got worse. Take them and go, I whispered. Don't come back, brother. Be careful. Leave this place, he murmured, clutching his stomach. He staggered to his feet and limped back to our father. The Wolf King stared at me, his expression a mess of rage and shame. His reject son had just humiliated his tribe. He snarled once, then turned and led them away. My sister, the actress, glanced back with those fake sad eyes one last time. Once they were gone, everything became clear. We weren't people to the beast-shifting tribes. We were livestock. The shamans wanted us for blood sacrifices before their big war against the cave bears. Both sides saw us as meat. I gathered everyone by the lake and told them the truth. The 100 tribes have never seen us as equals. Leaving is our only choice. Every one of you is thrown away by your own kind. They despise us. But I promise you, one day we'll come back. And everything they put us through, we'll repay double. Jia was the first to raise his fist and roar. Then everyone lifted their spears and howled into the night, pouring out years of pain and humiliation. I set fire to the wooden cabins I'd built with my own hands. The flames lit up the entire lake. Everyone collapsed their caves. We left Mirror Lake that same night, carrying everything we could. The next morning, tall figures arrived at the crater and found nothing but ruins. Their angry roars echoed off empty walls. 6 days of crossing the Ancestor Mountains. Shinyu had been right. The journey was hard, but manageable for our whole group. On the southern side, we descended into a sea of bamboo and found a river. I decided immediately this was home. Bamboo to the north, open plains on the other 3 sides with dense jungle still waiting to be explored. Bamboo was 100 times easier to work with than hardwood. My first priority was bamboo walls. Tomorrow, the real building would begin. On our 3rd day, I took hunters out and stumbled onto a scene in the bamboo forest. A mother panda-ear woman in beast form, a black and white bear, was facing down 5 wild jackals. Behind her, a round-faced little boy trembled. The jackals were smart. They didn't fight her directly. They circled, harassed, and waited for her transformation to run out. She lunged at 2. They dodged easily. While she was extended, 2 others darted behind her toward the boy. He screamed. She whirled back and chased them off. This went on until she was gasping. Her form shrank, transformation over. Without hesitating, she scooped up her son and ran. The jackals howled with excitement and gave chase. 2 circled ahead and cut her off. Trapped, she whispered one word to her boy. Climb. She lifted him onto a bamboo stalk. He wrapped his little legs around it and pulled himself up. That moment of reaching cost her everything. The jackals hit her from every side. She smashed one with her elbow, but another clamped down on the back of her neck. She fell. The boy clung to the bamboo, crying. Mother! No! She screamed, her last word. Don't come down. Then she was gone. The jackals looked up at the boy. They could wait. His arms would give out eventually. The sun set. His grip weakened. One jackal started ramming the bamboo stalk, shaking him loose. He slid lower, inch by inch. The others gathered below, licking their lips. His strength finally failed. He let go, thinking he'd die beside his mother. He hit the ground and closed his eyes. Then, howling. Not jackal howling. Jackal screaming. He opened his eyes. The jackals were scattering in every direction. Strange sounds cut through the air. Bamboo spears flew from every angle. The slow ones became pincushions instantly. I stepped out of the shadows and walked to the boy. He stared up at me, dazed. I held out my hand. Hey kid, you all right? He passed out. When he woke up, he was inside a bamboo hut. The smell of something he'd never experienced before, cooked, seasoned food, made him swallow involuntarily. He crawled outside and pushed through a hide curtain. People everywhere. Men carrying bamboo poles. A river with stacks of bamboo piled along its banks. A dozen bamboo shelters, just like the one he'd slept in. Oh, Chinyu spotted him first. She stood before him in a woven bamboo leaf skirt, a fur chest wrap, and a flower crown with white feathers tucked into it. She looked like a forest princess. He backed away, scared. She smiled gently. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. From nearby, I called out with a bamboo leaf between my teeth. Chinyu, if he's awake, bring him over too. Eat. Coming. The boy saw my face and remembered. I was the one who'd saved him. He let Chinyu take his hand and lead him over. He sat down nervously on the ground, then noticed I was sitting on something unusual, a huge tortoise shell, like a chair. His eyes went wide with curiosity. I laughed, stood up, and dragged the shell in front of him. Sit on this. More comfortable. The little panda boy sat down on the tortoise shell, then flinched when he felt the heat from the fire pit in front of him. His instincts screamed danger. Generations of beast ear memory told him fire meant disaster. He tried to scramble away. I held him gently. It's okay. This is fire. It's not a disaster. Chinyu pulled a roasted chicken wing off the spit and handed it to him. Eat. His nose twitched. So that's where the incredible smell came from. He grabbed it and bit down, then yelped and bared his teeth. Too hot. I took it back and showed him how to blow on it first. Jia walked up behind me wearing grass sandals, leather shin guards, and a hide vest. He looked like a proper warrior now. Leader, traps are all set. I noticed someone missing. Where's Chu Mo? Jia scratched his head. Went to find his kind. Apparently Chu Mo had caught the scent of another barrier person while setting traps and insisted on tracking it alone. I laughed. That guy was smarter than he looked. He wouldn't walk into real danger. It was probably a female brown bear. I chose this bamboo forest for more than just the river. Back on Earth, I grew up in the mountains of Sichuan with my grandfather. He raised me, and I spent my childhood helping him weave bamboo baskets and chairs to sell at market. Bamboo weaving was one skill I didn't need to guess at. I knew it by heart. I organized everyone's roles. Dear Ming would help me plan the wall construction. He was sharp enough to take over once he understood the design. Cat Knight. That was the cat ear man's name now, Knight, because he preferred prowling when everyone else slept. I paired him with 2 lynx ear tribesmen for a proper night patrol team. I learned during the journey that Cat Knight was actually the little cat girl's half-brother, same mother, different fathers. The cat girl begged me for a name, so I called her Moon. Cat Moon. Jia handled daily trap inspections and combat training. Chinyu managed all the women, sewing, weaving, gathering. Near the river, they'd found broad leaves similar to the ones used to wrap rice dumplings back home, plus a reed-like plant with good flexibility. The leaves could become summer skirts. The reeds might work for sandals. The wall project started the next day. I standardized the height at 4 meters above ground, with 1 meter buried underground for stability. The bamboo poles here were 8 meters long and thick as my arm. Perfect. We dug 4 trenches, each over 100 meters long, just wide enough to set bamboo poles into. 5 days flew by. Chu Mo finally came back and immediately collapsed into a deep sleep. I didn't bother asking questions. By then, 2 walls were already standing. He nearly jumped out of his skin when he saw them. He couldn't believe what we'd built while he was off chasing romance. 2 more days, and we'd have all 4 sides done. I wanted to sharpen the tops of the bamboo poles into points, but my stone tools couldn't handle it. I let that go for now and told everyone to collect interesting rocks while out foraging. If we could find copper and tin, or I could attempt bronze. Iron was out of the question. Our little pottery kiln couldn't come close to those temperatures. After days of rain, the sun finally appeared. I laid bamboo strips on the ground to dry, then planned to soak them in rain, dry them again, and boil them briefly. That process would make them flexible enough for weaving. I'd also try making a bamboo bow, less durable than wood, but faster to build. Hot. Chinyu fanned her face with both hands, tongue sticking out. She was sprawled inside our bamboo tent, bare legs kicked up. She hated the heat. Want to swim? I asked, fitting a bamboo peg into a hole I'd carved in a thicker pole, a joint system for building a bamboo table. Don't like water? She pouted. I smiled. I'd weave her a fan once the bamboo strips were ready. Then I heard small feet running fast. Cat Moon burst in, her usually calm face tight with panic. Leader. Lamb boy. Bitten. I dropped everything. Bitten by what? Snake. I ran to the tent where they'd carried him. A crowd had gathered. Dear Ming was kneeling beside the unconscious boy, forcing a purple-red root into his mouth. I pushed through. Dear Ming. How is he? Lamb boy was one of the few mixed children in our tribe. Sheep ear mother, deer ear father. He'd inherited sheep ears, but a deer's short tail. Dear Ming was a blood relative and looked devastated. He looked up at me. Leader. Snake grass. Maybe not working. He'd already given the boy snake grass, a common antivenom plant that many tribes kept on hand. We had plenty from the ancestor mountains. I put my hand on the boy's chest. His heartbeat was barely there. His face had turned black. His entire lower leg was dark and swollen. As a veterinarian in my past life, I'd studied herbal medicine, but most plants in this world were different from what I knew. Even if I could find the right herbs now, it was probably too late. The tribe gathered around, murmuring sadly. Even their clever leader couldn't fix everything. I turned to Cat Moon. Where did it happen? The river, she whispered, eyes wide with fear. No more playing by the river for now. Stay inside the settlement. I was examining the wound, trying to think of anything else I could do, when shouting erupted outside. A man ran up, breathless. Leader. Cat Knight caught a cow-ear person. You caught a cow-ear person? I wasn't in the mood to deal with strangers. Lamb boy was dying in front of me. But Cat Knight had already dragged the man over. The moment our eyes met, I knew this was no ordinary beast-ear person. He wore a calm smile despite being a prisoner. He had wrinkles around his eyes, small horns on his head, a cloth wrap around his waist, and a blue bird symbol painted on his chest. He wasn't naked like most beast-ear people I'd met. You're the leader? He asked. His speech was smoother than Chun Yu's after months of practice. Yes. Why were you breaking our traps? He shook his head gently. Not breaking. Curious. They're cleverly designed. Almost caught this old man. Then a woman screamed from the tent. I dropped everything and ran to Lamb Boy. He was foaming at the mouth, eyes rolling back. I clenched my fists. I had nothing left to try. The cow-ear old man's voice came from behind me, calm and certain. Green water snake venom. Late, but worth trying. Cat Knight and the others were gripping his legs, trying to hold him back. I looked at the old man's steady eyes and made a decision. Let him go. He walked to Lamb Boy, pulled my jade dagger from my belt without asking, and cut a line across the boy's chest. Black blood poured out. The tribe gasped. People surged forward in anger, but I blocked them. Don't move. Let him try. Bring me my pack, he said over his shoulder. Cat Knight grabbed a leather bundle from one of my men and handed it to me. I passed it to the old man. Inside were dried herbs, strange colored pebbles, and sharp-smelling powders. He gave quick instructions. Grind this stone, boil this bitter root, bring water. I obeyed without hesitating. Then he cut his own palm with the dagger and dripped his blood into Lamb Boy's mouth. Everyone stared in stunned silence. Half a day later, the old man woke from a nap, stepped out of the tent, and examined the bamboo construction with an approving nod. I rushed over and bowed to him with my fists pressed together. Thank you. Lamb Boy was alive. Under modern medicine, that snake bite might still have killed him. This old man had pulled a child back from death with roots, stones, and his own blood. The green water snake's venom acts slowly. The boy was lucky, he said, waving off my gratitude. I'm hungry, though. I smell meat. Could an old man get some? I had Chinyu bring him mushroom soup in a bamboo tube. He sat cross-legged on the ground and sipped it slowly. Good. You've added salt. Surprising, this deep in the mountains. Chu Mo waddled over, rubbing his round belly. He'd been sleeping all day and only came out at dusk. Mo, who's this? The old man looked at Chu Mo and blinked. A beast shifter living with non-shifters? How unusual. Chu Mo's eyes went wide. Mo, he's smart. I glared at him. Sit down. You think everyone's like you. Eat, sleep, and learn nothing? The old man chuckled at Chu Mo's big dumb grin, then spoke slowly. You must be wondering who I am, he told us. South of here, along the banks of something called the Moon River, there were many tribes, real civilizations that had entered the Stone Age. They had settlements, tools, and structure. People like him were called Earth Wise Men. They traveled the land spreading language and survival knowledge. Even the shamans of the northern tribes beyond the ancestor mountains had learned from wise men at some point. That vest, is it animal hide? He pointed at my leather armor, curious about us now. I nodded. It's tan cow. I stopped mid-sentence, remembering he was descended from cattle. He laughed softly. It's fine. Wild animals are wild animals. We took different paths. We're not the same species anymore. I was impressed. In this primitive world, meeting someone so open-minded felt like a miracle. No wonder they called him a wise man. Are you crossing the ancestor mountains? I asked. Yes. Walking the other side for a while. Collecting herbs. I felt genuine respect. This old man wandered alone through dangerous wilderness just to help people and gather medicine. Can we help you with anything? No. I travel alone. Besides groups like yours, nobody bothers me. He paused, and I felt a bit embarrassed. Compared to the civilizations he knew, we probably seemed like clueless savages. Can I know your name? I asked. Sue. He picked up a stick and drew a symbol in the dirt, something like a mountain with 2 dots inside it. This represents my name. I created it myself. I smiled. His attempt at writing wasn't exactly sophisticated, but it was a start. I wanted to ask about the Moon River settlements, but he shook his head. I never reveal where tribes are located. That's for you to discover yourself. He paused. But I will tell you one thing. What? He stroked his chin whiskers. This area is the edge of Pig Ear tribe territory. If you settle here, they won't be happy. They have terrible tempers. I thanked him sincerely for the warning. I offered him my jade dagger for protection. He declined. I'm a beast shifter. That surprised me. The southern tribes he described used stone tools. Didn't he understand that weapons could be more practical than transformation? He seemed to read my thoughts. Beast shifters who rely on tools lose the totem's blessing. Their ancestral power fades over time. So even this wise old man had his blind spots. He believed transformation was more valuable than any tool. And honestly, he wasn't wrong about stone tools. They had plenty of limitations. But what comes after stone tools? Bronze, iron, steel. He couldn't imagine those things. I kept my mouth shut. No point arguing about a future that didn't exist yet. Sue glanced at Chuimo when he mentioned that beast shifters lose their power if they rely on tools. Chuimo scratched his head. He'd barely followed our conversation. As long as he ate well and slept well, nothing else mattered to that big oaf. Then Sue straightened up. I can see your people have learned to build shelters. By our wise men's tradition, once a tribe shows intelligence, we teach them one survival skill. What do you want? I thought carefully. I didn't need hunting advice or building tips. What scared me most was what had just happened to Lamb Boy. We need knowledge about healing herbs. Sue looked surprised and a little impressed. Most tribe leaders would have asked for better ways to find food. He patted my shoulder. Green water snake venom kills an adult in 3 days. If you act immediately, cut the wound open, find this stone and a plant called heartleaf grass. You can save them. He handed me a gray-white stone, crumbly and light. It reminded me of limestone, but wasn't quite the same. He agreed to draw the heartleaf grass for me and asked for food in return. He'd stay 1 night, then head up into the ancestor mountains. That night, after Chunyu and I had finished our private business and she lay dozing contentedly on the fur mat, Mion's voice came from right outside the tent. Nearly gave me a heart attack. I stepped out. The little leopard girl was crouched beside the entrance. Since crossing the mountains with us, she still preferred wandering alone, only coming back occasionally to sleep. I smelled blood. I knelt down and found her forearm was cut. You're hurt? Did you eat your bloodgrass? Where have you been? 3 questions in a row. She looked up at me with those pitiful amber eyes but turned her head away stubbornly, refusing to answer. Classic Mion. I went back inside, grabbed dried your bloodgrass, and headed to the central fire to boil it. Sue appeared beside me. I was surprised he was still awake. He burped. Your tribe's soup is good, just not enough. I shifted and went outside to eat some grass. He said it casually, like it was perfectly normal for a wise man to graze in the middle of the night. Sue, are there many people like you? I asked. He shook his head slowly. My Green Bull clan has scattered to every corner of the world. Most got tired of traveling and settled down somewhere. Not many of us still walk the land. I filed that away. His people were clearly more intelligent than average bestiar tribes. If I could recruit some of them someday, they'd be invaluable. But I didn't dare bring that up yet. Offending him would be foolish. I smiled warmly. Sue, if you ever get tired, you're welcome here. I guarantee your food. He stroked his beard with a hint of pride. Many tribes have wanted me to stay. He sniffed the pot. Thistlegrass. Someone's injured. He called your bloodgrass, thistlegrass, similar to what it was called on Earth. Interesting. I told him about Mion. Without hesitating, he pulled a chunk of something from his pack that looked like a dirt clod. It had a strange, sharp smell. This is called rot yellow earth. Very rare. Sprinkle it on wounds. They heal faster. My eyes lit up. Thank you. Does it work by killing infection, preventing decay? Killing infection? He didn't understand my phrasing. I mean, the wound won't rot. He nodded slowly, stroking his beard. Where did you learn to talk like that? An elder in my tribe, I said, faking a sad expression. He's dead now. I couldn't reveal too much. Stay small, stay quiet, until we were strong enough. Sue sighed sympathetically. It does work as you describe, but I can't teach you how to make it. That's our Green Bull clan's secret. I understood. No hard feelings. I thanked him, poured the boiled medicine into a bamboo tube, and went to find Mion. She was crouching obediently by my tent door. I fed her the medicine, then reached for her hand to treat the wound. She yanked it back instantly, amber eyes going wide. I rubbed her head gently. I'm just applying medicine. Relax. I took her hand again. It was soft and plump, like a little paw pad. Cat Moon's hands felt the same way. Must be a feline thing. I carefully spread the yellow powder over her cut. She bared her teeth and hissed through the stinging. Almost done, I murmured. She endured it, trusting me despite the pain. When I finished, she pulled her hand back and said quietly, South. Pigs. They're bad, so the pig-ear tribe had hurt her. That's where she'd gotten the wound. South is their territory, I said firmly. Don't hunt there anymore. She vanished into the darkness so fast I barely saw her move. Sue left before dawn without saying goodbye. I didn't dwell on it. I had too much to do. Today's project, building a proper kiln for mass-producing pottery. Our crude fire pits had terrible success rates. Step 1 was making charcoal, not just burning wood. Charcoal requires cutting off air supply during burning. I'd build a mud kiln by the river for that. Charcoal burns hotter than raw wood, which should improve our pottery. And if I could find limestone nearby, I'd try making quicklime to deal with the snakes and insects plaguing this area. I was in the middle of construction when Cat Knight materialized beside me again. Leader. People coming. From the south. What kind? Pigs. How many? He struggled with numbers for a moment. Not many. Less than us. They'd probably tracked Mion sent here. I called every man in the tribe to arms immediately. If these pig people wanted trouble, I had no problem making them disappear. The men assembled with weapons, stone spears, sharpened bamboo spears, shields, axes. I dragged Chumo out of his nap. We needed the big man's presence to intimidate. Mion appeared from wherever she'd been hiding. My fault. I'm going, stubborn girl. Her wound hadn't even healed. I looked at her hard. If it comes to a fight, you stay back. She blinked those amber eyes. Okay. Footsteps crashed through the jungle south of the river. Cat Knight scouted ahead and perched in a tree, pointing forward. We slowed down and crept through the undergrowth until we spotted them. 9 pig-ear tribesmen sitting in a small clearing between massive old trees, tearing into raw, bloody rabbit meat with their hands. They had no idea we were there. Everyone waited for my signal. I remembered Sue's warning, don't make enemies carelessly. So instead of ambushing, I whistled. My men burst out and surrounded them in seconds. The pig-ears grabbed their weapons, mostly bone clubs, except for one fat man gripping a stone hammer. Neither side attacked first. I stepped forward. This is our territory. Why are you here? The fat leader squared up to me. He was covered in thick black body hair like a fur sweater, smeared with mud and tree sap. Disgusting to look at. But I noticed something interesting. They wore actual cloth wraps around their waists. Not grass skirts. Rough linen. They had contact with southern civilization. Your territory? Never seen your tribe before, he barked. Now you have? I said coldly. His beady eyes darted around, sizing us up. He signaled to one of his men, who immediately transformed into a massive black boar. The message was clear: they had beast shifters. We didn't. He smirked. Mountain trash. Looking to die. No more talking. The boar charged straight at us, confident in its thick hide coated with hardened mud and tree sap, natural armor that most weapons couldn't penetrate. Throw, I shouted. 16 spears flew at once. Most of the pig ears shifted into boar form. One was too slow. 2 spears caught him before he could transform. He squealed and shifted anyway, wounded. The lead boar barreled toward us. At the last second, I sidestepped with Deer Ming. Behind us, Chu Mo in full bear form slammed both paws down on the boar's skull. Its face smashed into the dirt. Deer Ming and I drove our bamboo spears into both sides of its belly. Even through that thick hide, close-range thrusts made it scream. Leader, watch out, someone yelled. I rolled sideways as another boar plowed past where I'd been standing. Chu Mo wasn't fast enough to dodge. He took a hit to the body but roared and locked into a brawl with the second boar. Spread out, I ordered. But not fully. We'd trained for this. Groups of 3. One shield bearer charged headlong into the boar's rush, absorbing the impact. When the boar paused to shake off the collision, the other 2 swung stone axes at its head. The coordination was tight. These boars were tough, incredible strength and stamina, but we kept pulling back and attacking, wearing them down. The fight raged for several minutes. Then the first boar, the one Chu Mo had smashed and we'd stabbed, collapsed out of beast form. Instantly, a snow leopard dropped from a tree above and clamped its jaws around his throat. Meon. She'd killed him before he even knew what happened. On my side, every shield was destroyed, but nobody had gone down. We used our numbers and mobility to surround the boars and hammer them from all angles. I faced the biggest boar with Jie and Deer Ming. My bamboo spear had snapped long ago. Both stone spears were gone. All I had was my jade dagger. The boar fixated on me, charging again and again. I kept dodging, using my wolf blood speed, looking for an opening. The boar chased me to the edge of the battlefield. I glanced at a huge old tree behind me. I had an idea. I deliberately stumbled backward, pretending to slip. The boar saw its chance and lowered its head for a full-speed charge. Just before impact, I threw my hand up. A figure flew over my head. Meon, leaping from above. She grabbed my raised hand midair and flung me sideways with her momentum, launching me clear. I tumbled across the ground. Behind me, a thunderous crash. The boar had slammed head first into the ancient tree trunk. Its body locked up for a few seconds, then toppled over. Jie and Deer Ming were on it instantly, hacking and stabbing as it shuddered out of beast form. Meon offered me her small hand and pulled me up. I grinned at her. Nice work. Perfect timing. You looked beautiful flying through the air like that. One glance between us was all it had taken. She'd read my plan in my eyes, sprinted in, leaped, shifted out of leopard form midair, and used her strength and momentum to yank me out of the boar's path. She turned her head away with a quiet huff. I noticed her forearm wound had reopened from the effort. It's over now, I said gently. Stop moving that arm. On the other side of the battlefield, Chu Mo and his 3-man team had finished off 2 boars. Chu Mo was terrifying in combat, nothing like his usual dopey self. He'd ripped both boars apart before they could even drop their beast forms. The 3 men supporting him had backed away, afraid he'd lose control and accidentally crush them too. Their strength was horrifying. 2 boars tried to run. Cat Knight's team chased them down and brought them back alive. I ordered the dead boars' heads cut off and hung from the trees. A warning to anyone who wandered this way. This land has owners now. Half my men were wounded, but nothing critical. These bodies healed fast. I had Cat Knight and 2 others stay behind to erase our tracks. We couldn't let anyone follow us back to the settlement. Not yet. Where did you get this? I held up a strip of rough linen cloth in front of the 2 pig-ear prisoners. They stared at the ground and said nothing. I smiled. I had ways of making people talk. I nodded at Deer Ming, who gave them a very thorough and persuasive greeting. Ape tribe. It's from the ape tribe, they blurted out. Where are they? Far. Toward the sunrise. 5 or 6 days of walking. Interesting. An ape-ear tribe that could weave cloth. I filed that away. Deer Ming, they're yours. Put them to work. Feed them twice a day. Don't let them starve. The only loot from the pig ears was a pile of linen scraps. Not impressive, but useful. I had everything washed and sun-dried. 2 days passed with no sign of the pig tribe returning. Cat Knight found no tracks either. They'd gotten the message. I turned my attention to a new project, a bamboo bow. I sat on the ground, working while Cat Moon crouched silently beside me, watching. She'd been quieter lately, preferring my company over playing with the other children. I didn't mind. "Go get the cattle tendon for me," I said. She trotted off obediently. It took all morning to split a 2-finger-wide bamboo strip with my stone knife, smooth out the bumps where the nodes had been, and wrap the center grip with pig ear linen. I drilled holes at both ends, then braided a bowstring from cattle tendon twisted together with unraveled linen thread that I'd boiled first for strength. I pressed my knee against the middle of the bamboo strip and slowly bent both ends upward until it curved into a proper bow shape. By sunset, Jia returned with the hunting party. Slim pickings today, just one wild boar and some chickens and bird eggs. I had them set the dead boar on open ground for target practice. The results impressed me. At 30 meters, my arrow punched through the boar's hide. If it could do that to a thick-skinned pig, it could certainly kill a person. I was honestly surprised. The bamboo bows I'd made as a kid back in Sichuan had been useless past 10 meters. The difference was the materials. The cattle tendon string snapped with real power, and this world's bamboo was tougher and more flexible. Everyone wanted to try. I let them take turns, coaching each one. Their aim was terrible. Most couldn't hit anything. But Cat Knight picked it up like he was born for it. After 2 or 3 shots, he was hitting targets accurately at 20 meters. I praised him in front of everyone for his earlier scouting work and handed him the first bamboo bow as a reward. The others watched enviously. Even Cat Knight's usually cold face cracked a small smile. Weeks passed. Deep summer arrived. North of the river, our bamboo settlement had grown into a real walled village. People came and went through the gate. Women carried bamboo baskets filled with berries. They'd learned to sun-dry half for storage and mash the rest into paste for seasoning meat. Shinyu sat with Cat Moon and 2 younger girls playing a bone-tossing game I taught them. You toss one piece in the air, grab bones off the ground, and catch the falling piece before it lands. Shinyu won again, cleaning out all 3 kids' carefully polished game pieces. The 2 younger ones pouted. Cat Moon didn't care about the bones at all. Shinyu gave half back, generous, but not all. Losing should have consequences. After the little ones left, Cat Moon asked quietly, "Leader, not back yet?" Shinyu missed me too. I'd been gone 3 days searching for a new salt source. At that exact moment, I was sprinting down a mountainside with Chu Mo and Dear Ming, chased by a swarm of thumb-sized hornets. "Chu Mo, if you ever steal honey again, I'm cutting your tongue out." We'd successfully tracked a deer herd to a salt-lick cliff, collected what we needed, and were heading home. Then this idiot bear man spotted a beehive and couldn't resist. Now hundreds of furious hornets were trying to murder us. Chu Mo ran alongside me, still licking honey off his fingers. "Mo, we won't die." "You won't die? You've got bear hide. What about me and Dear Ming?" "Water." "I smell water," Dear Ming shouted from up front. My wolf nose confirmed it. Moisture in the air. We veered toward it, crashing through a field of boulders until a green pool appeared ahead. All 3 of us dove in without checking what was in it. We hid underwater, watching the hornets circle above. My lungs burned. Finally, they gave up and flew away. I surfaced first, gasping. Chuamo popped up laughing like a maniac. I cursed at him. Then I realized something. "Where's Dear Ming?" Our faces dropped. We both dove back under. Through the murky water, I saw a dark shape. I swam closer, and my blood went cold. A giant python had Dear Ming wrapped in its coils. He was already unconscious. No time to think. I pulled my jade dagger and drove it into the snake's body, dragging the blade downward in one long cut. Blood clouded the water. Shuamo shifted into bear form beside me and grabbed the python's head with both claws, trying to rip it apart. The snake hadn't expected prey this aggressive. It released its grip. I grabbed Dear Ming and kicked toward the surface, hauling him onto the bank. His face was blue. I put both hands on his chest and started pressing, singing the rhythm of a pop song in my head to keep the tempo steady. Push, push, push. In the pool behind me, Chuemo surfaced and roared in victory over the dead snake. He saw the look on my face and immediately went quiet, hanging his head like a scolded child. Minutes passed. My arms ached. Then Dear Ming coughed weakly. My heart leaped. Dear Ming, but he went still again. No more response. I kept pressing, desperate, feeling hope drain away. Then from behind a tall rock nearby, a clear voice rang out. "Hey." I spun around, heart pounding. Behind the rocks stood 3 deer-ear girls holding bamboo spears, wearing deerskin clothes and white feather crowns. A herd of spotted deer stood calmly beside them. "Chuamo," I called out. He was still dragging the giant python onto the bank. He dropped it instantly and ran over when he saw strangers. The lead girl raised her hands. "I can help your friend." I didn't lower my guard. "Is this your territory?" She nodded gently, glancing at the half-destroyed python with fear in her eyes. She slowly approached with her 2 companions. Up close, she was stunning. Pale skin rare in this era, red lips, white teeth, about my height. A leather cord wrapped around one thigh, grass sandals on her feet. She looked at Deer Ming on the ground and seemed surprised. The man I was trying to save was from her own deer-ear clan. "I'm a shaman. I can save him," she said. I had nothing left to try. I bowed deeply with my fists pressed together and stepped back with Chuamo. "Emo? I'm sorry," Chuamo whispered beside me. His greed for honey had nearly killed a tribesman. For once, the big idiot was genuinely reflecting. I watched the 3 girls work. 2 of them began dancing gracefully with their staffs while the young shaman pulled out a bamboo tube filled with thick black paste. She spread it on Deer Ming's chest, cut her own palm and dripped blood into the tube, then added crushed dried flower petals. The 2 dancers spat into the tube. She stirred everything together and poured it into Deer Ming's mouth. All 3 knelt and prayed with clenched fists. Chuamo and I sat waiting as the sun crept lower through the stone forest. Then Deer Ming coughed violently. We rushed over. His eyes fluttered open, saw my face, and his lips moved slightly. "It's okay," I told him. "The python's dead. Chuamo killed it." He blinked once and passed out again, but alive. I turned to the 3 girls. "Thank you for saving my tribesmen." The young shaman smiled softly. "You killed the python. You helped us too." She explained that this pool was her tribe's only reliable water source, but the giant snake had been attacking anyone who came to drink. We'd solved their biggest problem by accident. "It's dark. Come rest with my tribe," she offered. I hesitated, then agreed. She seemed kind. The deer-ear tribe was larger than I expected, at least 100 people, mostly women. A true matriarchal society. What amazed me was that they rode deer. Spotted deer lived alongside them, and many women moved around on deerback. They lived west of the boulder field, using natural rock overhangs as half-caves, adding bamboo and branch walls to create shelters. When Chuamo and I dragged in the python carcass, everyone gathered to stare. Children hid behind their mothers. The snake was 7 or 8 meters long and thicker than my thigh, easily big enough to swallow a person whole. The shaman cleared the crowd. Chuamo and I skinned the snake. Snake skin was valuable material. The deer people backed far away from the blood smell, but the shaman stayed close, fascinated by my jade dagger. I considered making fire, but noticed they had none. Deer people probably hated fire. It destroys forests and plants. I kept my fire-making to myself. No point offending my hosts. I offered them the snake meat. The shaman accepted happily. They did eat meat occasionally, especially the tribe members who couldn't transform. Those people needed protein. That night, under a sky full of stars, Chuamo slept for once while I sat on a boulder chatting with the young shaman. "Have you met Sue?" I asked, making conversation. Her eyes brightened. "Yes. He came through recently." She studied my face. "You can't transform." "Correct. Then how does the bear obey you?" I tapped my forehead. "This," she laughed, then grew serious. "That pressing thing you did, it was incredible. Without it, we couldn't have saved him." "CPR," I said quietly. "Artificial breathing." Her eyes sparkled like the stars above. "A tribal secret? Something like that?" She looked away, disappointed. She wanted to learn, but was too honorable to ask for another tribe's sacred knowledge. I read her perfectly. "I can teach you." She shook her head quickly. "No, tribal knowledge is precious. I can't just take it." I liked her even more. Honest to a fault. "My tribe is gone," I lied gently. "Let me teach you. It shouldn't die with me." She hesitated. "Then I'll give you something in return." "Deal." Our eyes met. My heart beat faster than it should have. With Chinyu, things had happened naturally. 2 lonely souls finding comfort. This was different. This girl made my chest tight just by looking at me. "You should. Lie down." I said, clearing my throat. She lay back without suspicion, eyes full of eager curiosity. I placed my hand on her chest, slightly left of center. Press here, Push down firmly, The softness under my palm was distracting. I saw her pure, trusting eyes looking up and coughed, pulling myself together. Now you need to sing a steady rhythm. One press per beat. What's a rhythm? I explained patiently, then began quietly singing the tune I'd used, a catchy pop song from my old life. She tried to follow along. We took turns practicing on each other, switching positions, pressing and singing late into the night. The deer ear tribe watched from their shelters with huge eyes. Their shaman and this wolf stranger were climbing on top of each other, chanting mysterious words, doing something none of them understood. They assumed it was some sacred ritual between tribes. The next morning, Chumo carried Deer Ming on his back as we said goodbye. The deer ear women were generous. They told me I could come back anytime for salt and escorted us all the way through the boulder field. Back at the bamboo settlement, I got Deer Ming settled with caretakers, then immediately started boiling salt with Chunyu. Our supply was almost gone, and salt had become essential, distributed based on how much work each person did. The tribe was still running on shared resources. I'd had a bamboo storehouse built, guarded by 2 people, filled with everything we'd collected. That evening outside my bamboo house, Cat Moon and the little panda boy were crouching on the ground counting bamboo sticks, math lessons I'd started. When Cat Moon saw me, she abandoned the panda kid and ran over, proudly holding up a gray-white stone. She knew I'd been trying to fire limestone. Her brother Cat Knight had found this rock and given it to her. I examined it carefully. Too hard for limestone. It had a faint metallic sheen. My pulse quickened. This might be tin or... I couldn't be sure without firing it, but the texture was promising. For me, I rubbed her head. She nodded earnestly. I had other work tomorrow. I was building a drum using the python skin. It had great flexibility. Cowhide was too precious, so snake skin would do for now. Before I could go inside, Song walked up, a cold, quiet wolf-ear man, probably our best fighter after Jia. He held up a bamboo bow he'd built himself. I tested the draw. Not bad at all. You made this yourself? A silent nod. I clapped his shoulder. Good work. The bowstring attachment needs fixing though. Take it apart, and I'll show you the right way. The ghost of a smile crossed his stoic face. Praise from the leader meant everything, even if a proud wolf would never show it the way a cat or rabbit would. I taught Song arrow making late into the night. The feather tail keeps the arrow stable in flight. You don't need to understand why. Just never skip the feathers. He nodded solemnly, then noticed a pair of glowing red eyes at the doorway. Chinyu, radiating displeasure. Even the fearless Song was scared of my rabbit wife. Her authority over the tribe's women had grown until practically everyone obeyed her. Leader, I'm leaving. He grabbed his bow and fled. Chinyu's expression shifted to satisfied. I turned around with a weak smile. She'd been muttering about one thing constantly lately. Why couldn't she get pregnant when other mixed-species couples in the tribe had children? She didn't know I was deliberately preventing it. The world wasn't safe enough yet. But try explaining birth control to a rabbit girl. I finished the drum frame from woven bamboo and stretched snake skin over both sides. It sounded decent when I tapped it. Good craftsmanship never fades. At noon, I'd just bitten into roast meat when someone shouted for me. I ran over with Cat Moon. Everyone was gathered around the fire pit, pointing at a silvery white liquid pooling at the bottom. I killed the fire and waited for it to cool. The liquid had hardened into odd-shaped lumps of silver-white metal. I picked one up and bent it easily. It deformed without cracking. The tribe looked disappointed. Softer than pottery. Useless, they thought. I was ecstatic. This texture, this color, this malleability, it was tin. Real tin metal. This is treasure. I held up the warped piece and laughed out loud. Nobody understood. I sent Cat Moon to find her brother so he could tell me where he'd found the ore. Hours passed. Cat Knight didn't come back. A cold feeling hit my gut. Something was wrong. I grabbed Mion, Chumo, and 4 men and headed into the southern jungle. Normally, Cat Moon could call out from the forest edge and Cat Knight would answer from inside. This time, silence. He was either not in the forest or in trouble. We pushed through. The traps were untouched. Past the ancient trees, a lynx-ear man dropped from a branch. Leader, where's Cat Knight? He went after ape-ear people. Ape ears are here. My heart jumped. I was curious whether they looked like humans from my old world, but this wasn't the time. How long ago? Half a day. Stay on guard. We're going after him. Mion moved first, tracking by scent, leaving marks for us to follow. She was fast and precise. We found Cat Knight on the open ground east of the jungle, standing face to face with two ape-ear men. They carried leather packs and wore linen wraps. Their ears were small, their noses large and slightly upturned. Not quite human-looking, but close. Cat Knight had them pinned down with his bow. One had an arrow graze on his shoulder. They were panting, hands up. "Why are you chasing us?" Cat Knight's cold voice. "You entered our territory." The two ape men exchanged glances. "Your wild beast ears?" Cat Knight said nothing. They seemed to understand. One put on a friendly smile. "We're ape-ear people. We trade." "You know what trade is?" "Trade." One of the ape-ear men stepped closer and pointed at Cat Knight's bow. "What is that?" Cat Knight said nothing. "I told everyone. Our tools stay secret." The ape man scratched his cheek, then pulled a piece of brown linen from his pack and held it up. "Trade. For food." Cat Knight understood the offer, but hesitated. He knew I valued this cloth material, but he couldn't trade the bow. He did have some wild chickens stashed in his forest hut, though. Then Mion came sprinting in as a snow leopard and shifted back beside Cat Knight. She glanced at the situation. "Leaders behind me," she said, and went quiet. I arrived moments later. Seeing the ape-ear men gave me a strange feeling of warmth. Their ears looked almost exactly like human ears from my old world. Only the long tails gave them away. Once I understood they were traders, not invaders, I relaxed. "You want to trade? I need your linen." They were shocked that a wild, beast-ear person could speak so fluently. One immediately held up his cloth. "One sheep. Way too expensive." I shook my head. Linen was nice, but not essential. Xinyu's women were already searching for plants to weave fabric from. "One chicken," I countered. They huddled together, whispering. A piece of linen was actually only worth one chicken by their own standards. Their women could weave it quickly. They agreed without haggling. While we waited for someone to fetch the chickens, I asked what else they had. They spread out their leather packs. Inside were various goods, including small clay pots, better quality than ours, with cleaner firing. "What's in this one?" I picked up a sealed pot. "Glue," the trader said. I wanted to open it, but he wouldn't let me. Not until I knew what it was and agreed to trade. "Fair enough. What do you want for it?" "Horns." He mimed antlers or cattle horns. I had plenty of cattle horns stored away. I'd planned to hollow some out for signal horns, but I could spare one or two. Deal. I ended up trading 6 chickens for all their linen and 1 horn for the pot of glue. Before they left, they told me something valuable. When the leaves turn yellow and autumn arrives, there would be a large multi-tribe trading gathering in a canyon 7 days to the east. It lasted for a while, and any tribe could attend. My mind raced. A trading fair. If I could produce tin goods by then, shiny, beautiful metal containers that nobody else had, I could trade for things that would take months to make or find on my own. I thanked them sincerely. After they disappeared, I turned to Cat Knight with a stern look. "Next time, report first before chasing anyone." He nodded, accepting the criticism. He'd thought he could handle 2 people alone. He was right about that, but running off without telling anyone was dangerous and reckless. That evening I tested my snakeskin drum. The sound was thinner than I wanted, not deep enough for a war drum, but the tribe loved it. Everyone gathered around as I played, waving their arms and swaying to the beat. Mion poked her head out of her little bamboo hut, watched for 2 seconds, and ducked back inside. Chuamo slept through the whole thing like a dead pig. Xinyu claimed the drum immediately. Anything I made was a treasure in her eyes. I asked Cat Knight about the tin ore. He said he'd found the stone south of the jungle, about half a day's walk, in a gully between 2 low hills. That area was pig-ear territory. 3 separate pig clans lived south of us, all loosely related by blood. The group we'd fought was the smallest, roughly our size. With their leader dead and most of their fighters gone, the survivors had probably joined the other 2 clans. Neither bigger clan had come looking for revenge, which was good. The 2 pig-ear prisoners confirmed this with miserable faces. "Our chief is dead. Our people must have gone to the other tribes. I needed that tin ore, and I needed it before the autumn trade fair. Tomorrow I take a team south." Xinyu and the women came back from the river carrying bamboo fish traps on their backs, a design I'd taught them. The catch was excellent. as good as any net. The women praised my cleverness. Chinyu walked beside me glowing with pride, arm wrapped around mine. Then her expression changed. Visitors. The deer-ear shaman had found us. She'd brought 6 of her people and a gift, salt rocks. That night when I taught her CPR, she'd been eager to keep talking, to learn from someone she considered wise. Now she was back, hoping I could teach her how to process the fine salt she'd seen us use. She wasn't asking for free. She'd brought 2 domesticated spotted deer, already tame, obedient, and soon to produce fawns. Animals I wouldn't need to spend months breaking. Of course I accepted, but the salt processing method was too valuable to hand over completely. I'll prepare some for you to take home, I told her. You bring the raw stone. I'll return refined salt. She smiled warmly and nodded, seemingly unsurprised. She hadn't really expected to get our secrets. Her people were fascinated by our bamboo walls and houses, sitting on the ground twisting their heads to peek inside every structure. I invited them all to stay for a feast. We lit a massive bonfire, and I brought out the snakeskin drum. Then the deer shaman pulled out a bone flute and began to play. Actual melody. Actual rhythm. I felt a little embarrassed. I'd been banging the drum randomly with zero musical sense. But nobody cared. Everyone danced together, men locking arms and stomping, throwing their heads back to howl in unison. No elegance. Pure primal celebration. And that was perfect. The more the men and women mingled, the better. This tribe needed babies. The party lasted until deep in the night. When it finally quieted, I sat with Chunyu on my left and the deer shaman on my right. She told me stories of her people, then held up her bone flute. A traveling wise man gave this to my mother long ago. She never saw him again. Your mother fell in love with a wise man? I asked without thinking. The deer shaman tilted her beautiful face, confused. Love? Chinyu hugged my arm possessively. Love is when 2 people make babies together. The shaman covered her mouth and laughed. If that's not love, then what is? Between a mother and daughter, that's family love, I said quietly. Between a man and woman who want to care for each other, that's romantic love. Your mother and the wise man, that was probably friendship. She pressed her palms together, eyes shining with admiration. Yes, friendship. Did you think of these words yourself, Mo? More or less. I took the credit shamelessly. But she'd planted an important seed in my mind. Building a tribe wasn't just about tools and food. People needed ideas, right and wrong, kindness and loyalty, rules to live by. That's what separates humans from animals. I need to start teaching morals alongside survival skills eventually. She turned to Chinyu. You too. Neither of you can transform? Chinyu sniffed. What's so great about transforming? I quickly changed the subject before my rabbit wife started a fight. I want to know, how do your people keep their teeth so healthy? Healthy? White. No rot. She smiled shyly. We chew a certain grass root. It keeps teeth healthy. Yes. Could you bring some next time? We could trade for it. Sure. Then I asked about the autumn trade fair. She explained everything. It was organized by the wise men and shamans from 3 major tribes. The fair happened every year in a canyon 7 days east. But here was the part that surprised me. The main thing being traded wasn't goods. It was people. Tribes exchanged members to prevent inbreeding. Most preferred trading within the same species, because mixed species children almost always couldn't transform and ended up as slaves. I memorized every detail. We agreed to travel to the fair together. The next morning, Jie's hunting team returned early from the bamboo mountains with a good catch. Bamboo traps were easy to make and set in large numbers. Our success rate kept climbing. The deer shaman woke in the guest bamboo hut, breathing in the clean scent of bamboo. She'd slept wonderfully on a bamboo bed layered with sheepskins, the best lodging our tribe could offer. From the window, she watched me sitting on the ground with the children, teaching them to count from 1 to 10. Kids raised their hands eagerly, competing to answer. Meanwhile, women headed out laughing with bamboo fish traps on their backs. The shaman wanted to ask about our bamboo weaving, but she'd already requested so much during her visit. She decided to go home, collect that tooth-cleaning grass root, and trade for bamboo goods properly next time. I ended the children's lesson early, leaving Cat Moon in charge, and went to supervise our first real kiln firing. We loaded dried clay pots into the new charcoal kiln, packed charcoal underneath, and sealed the top with only a small opening for feeding the fire. The deer shaman came to say goodbye. Behind her, I noticed one of her girls looking sheepish, She'd spent the night in Deer Ming's hut. Both the shaman and I quietly approved. Even a one-night encounter could produce a child, and that would benefit both tribes. Leaving already? I'd given her refined salt yesterday. With a simple filter made from ash, linen, and bamboo, her people could process it further on their own. I can't leave my tribe too long, she said softly. Let me escort you. No, you're busy. We know these lands well. Then, Song, take some men and walk them part way. Yes, leader, but half a day passed, and Song hadn't returned. My gut tightened. I grabbed Mian, Jia, and several men and ran. Mian burst out of the brush ahead of us, face pale. Tiger scent. My blood went cold. Tiger, bestier or wild, it didn't matter. Every tribe in this world feared tigers down to their bones. Somewhere ahead, Song was sprinting through the bamboo forest with the deer shaman and one of her people. Tiger roars echoed behind them. Song's bow was shattered. He'd drawn it too hard in panic and snapped the body. He still clutched the bowstring in his fist, unwilling to let it go. Over the peak, the other side leads home. Song gasped out more words in one breath than he'd probably spoken in his entire life. The deer shaman was fading. Her stamina couldn't match a wolf-blood warrior's. Her companion shouted, "Shaman, transform and run." She looked at Song. She didn't want to abandon him. Song understood immediately. Go? I have a plan, she gritted her teeth, thinking of her tribe waiting for her. Both deer women shifted and bounded uphill on four legs. Song stopped running and turned around. A white tiger exploded from the bamboo, over 3 meters long, cold eyes fixed on him with predatory amusement. Song took a slow breath. He pulled the spear from his back and raised it high overhead. The tiger flinched sideways. It had already been hit by spears today and remembered the pain. Several small wounds on its flanks proved it. But Song didn't throw. He spun and ran, not the way he'd come, but at an angle downhill. The tiger realized it had been tricked and roared, lunging after him. Downhill was fast, but Song couldn't outrun a tiger's burst speed. Within seconds, he heard its breath right behind him. He threw himself flat, rolling across the ground. The tiger sailed over him, landing where he'd been a heartbeat before, claws raking empty air. The tiger didn't miss twice. It locked on its Song, coiled, and launched again. Song knew he was dead. He stopped running, threw himself backward, and jammed the butt of his spear into the ground with the point aimed upward. One desperate gamble. But he'd underestimated the jungle king. The tiger didn't leap into the spear. It stopped on a dime. Only a cat could control its body like that. Song's face went white. The beast was smarter than he'd hoped. Before he could stand, the tiger dropped low and charged. One paw snapped his spear like a twig. He stumbled back, tried to turn and run. Then a sharp leopard scream cut through the air. The tiger flinched and pulled back, scanning for the new threat. A small snow leopard stood nearby. Mian. The tiger's eyes filled with contempt. This little thing dared challenge it? It roared. The entire mountainside trembled. But before the echo faded, spears came flying from the bamboo. The tiger leaped backward, dodging. We burst out of the tree line, 7 of us, including me. I stared at the white tiger, and my stomach dropped. This thing was bigger than any Siberian tiger I'd ever seen in documentaries. My men pulled Song to his feet. The deer people? I asked. They ran. I exhaled with relief. Then all 7 of us started shouting, waving spears, making as much noise as possible. The tiger watched us, but didn't come closer. A predator like this, especially a cat, wouldn't risk injury for a single meal. Getting hurt in the wild meant death. It had already killed a deer during its ambush on the deer ear group. It turned and vanished to retrieve that prize instead. I let out a long breath. We couldn't have beaten that thing head on. We found the deer ear group nearby. They'd lost 2 spotted deer and 1 woman was wounded, but not badly. The shaman thanked us. I insisted on escorting them all the way to their territory's edge this time. Back home, Chuimo heard about the tiger and perked up, his usual laziness gone. Mo, let's go hunt it together. He was right. We couldn't let a giant tiger roam near our land. But first I needed to get the tin ore from the south. The tiger wouldn't come close to our settlement for a while after today. We'd plan a proper hunt later. For now, I told everyone to stay out of the deep bamboo forest. The next day I headed south with Mian, Jia, and 3 others. Past the southern jungle, which I officially named South Forest for easier communication, the landscape opened into wide grassland. The ancient forests were shrinking, giving way to endless plains. Creatures that couldn't adapt would go extinct. Those that changed survived, just like early apes who left the trees and learned to walk upright. We moved fast across the open ground, passing animal herds. We hunted 2 deer on the way for food. During a rest stop under a massive ancient tree, Mian climbed into the canopy and found several bird nests. Everyone happily boiled the eggs. She crouched beside me, staring into the bubbling pot. I tried asking about her past. Mian, was your old territory north of the Ancestor Mountains? She went still, then silently shook her head. Bad memories. She never wanted to talk about it. Every time I tried to get her to open up, she shut down. I handed her a boiled egg the size of my fist. She peeled it expertly. She'd gotten used to cooked food by now. Giant birds screamed overhead, furious about their stolen eggs. My men actually got excited, hoping one would swoop down so they could test their spear accuracy. The birds circled and screeched, but weren't brave enough to attack. By midday, we reached the gully between 2 low hills where Cat Knight had found the tin ore. Rocks everywhere. I sent the men down to collect while Mian and I kept watch from the hilltop. I was hollowing out a dried deer bone, trying to make a bone flute. My grandfather used to carve bamboo flutes back home. The memory had been blurry before, but my post-crossing perfect recall let me replay every detail. Where to drill the holes, how far apart, the angle of each cut. Mian, dozing beside me, suddenly raised her head. Blood. I sniffed the air. My wolf nose caught it too, thick and fresh. Not far. I told Jia to keep collecting while Mian and I went to investigate. Just a quick look. 2 of us were a small enough target to escape if needed. We went south over the hill. Near the bottom, Mian shifted into leopard form and scouted ahead. The base of the slope was covered in bushes heavy with unripe green fruit. We crouched low and threaded through them until Mian stopped. I knelt beside her and peered through the leaves. What I saw made even my blood-hardened stomach clench. A massive crowd of pig-ear tribesmen surrounded a tall wooden platform. On top stood a pig-ear shaman wearing a bone mask with a leg bone tied to his head, arms spread wide, shaking his whole fat body in some kind of trance. At his feet, severed heads, dozens of them, mostly rabbit ears. Mixed in with the heads were bloody organs spread across the platform like a red carpet. Below, pig-ear men held animal skulls above their heads and circled the platform in rhythm, swaying their shoulders in unison. This was a real primitive sacrifice, the first I'd seen with my own eyes. I thought about what would have happened if we'd stayed north of the mountains. My people and I would have been the ones on that platform. Let's go, I whispered. Mian had seen this kind of thing before. She showed no interest in watching. We turned to leave. Then war cries erupted from the east. A herd of black boars, tusked and enormous, came crashing in. The pig-ear tribe exploded with rage. Warriors shifted into beast form and charged to meet them. Bodies collided. Boars fell on both sides. Non-shifting pig-ear slaves hurled stones frantically. Then more figures poured in from the east. Not pigs this time, but wolf-ear warriors carrying clubs. Their ears were different from mine, smaller, brownish. Mountain wolves, a different subspecies. I was Plains gray wolf stock. In beast form, I'd be bigger than any of them. This was a full tribal war, erupting right in front of us. 2 pig clans and a wolf pack, tearing each other apart over the sacrificial grounds. The mountain wolves shifted into brown beasts and poured into the fight. The battle tipped. The pig-ear shaman on the platform saw his side losing, sent his last reserves charging in. Then the fat coward transformed into a black boar and bolted straight toward our hiding spot in the bushes. Are you kidding me? He's running. I didn't have time to complain. Mian and I turned and sprinted back the way we'd come. The crashing behind us got louder. That pig was fast when his life depended on it. We burst out of the bushes and dove sideways. The black boar shot past us and slammed head first into a boulder. He dropped out of beast form, clutching his head, moaning on the ground. Mian and I exchanged a glance, then pounced. I planted my foot on his fat belly. He looked up at us with terror in his little eyes. Don't kill me. Mian stomped her grass sandal onto his pig face. Shut up. Sounds from the bushes. Someone was following. I grabbed the shaman's big floppy ear. Want to live? Then move. We dragged him over the hill. I told Jia's team to grab their baskets and run. No time to explain the fat stranger. Back at the bamboo settlement, the children swarmed the new prisoner, poking and teasing him. The two pig-ear captives from before stared in disbelief. A shaman from another pig clan, captured too? We shoved him to the ground. He was younger than I expected, and he immediately put on a groveling smile. I know about you. I pulled up a bamboo stool on Saturday. Oh? How? The mountain bamboo clan's chief. You killed him. His people fled to my tribe. He gave a nervous laugh. Then why didn't you come after us? He puffed up with fake outrage. They were my enemies. I narrowed my eyes. This one was clever. His smile was oily, his words calculated. Back on Earth, old-timers always said pigs were smarter than people gave them credit for. This one confirmed it. I didn't let my guard down for a second. Let's talk about you. Want to stay alive? He nodded frantically. What can you offer my tribe? I asked. His eyes lit up. He reached into the linen strip around his waist and pulled out tiny grains. These. Bury them in dirt. By autumn, they grow big. They taste amazing. I froze. My first thought was agriculture. I took the grains and sniffed, a faint rice-like fragrance. But the kernels were too small for rice. Not millet either. Something else. Maybe a wild ancestor of rice. You discovered this? I asked, my tone going cold. He rubbed his big nose, beady eyes shifting. My people found them. During a drought, in a dried swamp, eating grass. I've met a wise man, I said flatly. That rattled him. His face went pale. He'd assumed I was just another wild beast ear. He hadn't noticed until now how smoothly I'd been speaking. He winced. Okay, we found the grain, but the wise men told us we could plant things in soil. We buried lots of seeds this year. But before autumn came, my tribe, he trailed off. His tribe was gone. Your territory has swamps? Lots of water to the south, he said, still scrambling for ways to prove his usefulness. If these grains really were an ancestor of rice, and if I could selectively breed them, that could change everything. Hunting and fishing would always have limits. Farming was the real path forward. For now, you'll work with the others and earn your keep, I told him, then walked away. He sat there trembling, terrified I'd use him for a sacrifice. He was overthinking it. His job was digging holes alongside the other two pig prisoners, building our final wall section. The tribe that lost its shaman never came looking for him. The three southern pig clans had merged into one after their war. They didn't care about a runaway priest. I focused on metalworking. I built clay molds, crushed tin ore into small chunks, loaded them into the furnace with charcoal, and let the heat do its work. Molten silvery liquid flowed out through a channel into the molds. When it cooled, I had tin bowls, shiny, silver white, and beautiful. They weren't pure. You could see impurities in the metal, but to people who'd only known clay and stone, they were miraculous. The new charcoal kiln also improved our pottery dramatically. Better heat meant stronger, smoother pots with a completely different feel. I learned from the pig shaman that every tribe had a proper name. To build unity among my mixed species group, I named us the Vessel Tribe, Chi, in our language, meaning tools and containers. I didn't use any species name because we weren't one species. We were all of them. Summer dragged on. Mosquitoes multiplied in the bamboo forest. Everyone endured the heat and kept working on whatever I'd assigned. Then one morning as summer was finally fading, a woman burst out of the large bamboo chicken coop we'd built, holding something above her head. An egg. They laid an egg. We now had over 20 wild chickens of two varieties, all with clipped wings, living in that enclosure. They'd gotten used to being fed and had calmed down considerably. One gray long-tailed breed was growing fat quickly. Today, finally, the first egg. She ran to find me, but I wasn't home. Cat Moon was swinging on a bamboo swing set I'd built behind my house. Two thick posts with a bamboo crossbeam, bark rope chains, and a bamboo slat seat. I'd made it for her and Chun Yu during a quiet afternoon. It couldn't hold someone like Chu Mo without snapping, but for the girls it was perfect. Where's the leader? West. Visiting the deer ear people, one of the children answered. The woman spread the news anyway. The whole village buzzed with excitement. Everyone suddenly understood why I'd been raising those birds. More gray chickens meant eggs every day. Such simple thinking, I murmured to myself, standing in the boulder field with the deer ear shaman. That was my honest assessment of most beast ear people. Kind hearts, but they could only see one step ahead. The deer shaman looked the same as before, except for a jade pendant hanging from a woven cord on her wrist. Her hair had been cut shorter too. You used jade to cut your hair? I asked. She tilted her head. Why not? It's sharp when you polish it. I smiled. In this era, jade was just a useful stone, decorative and practical. Her people saw it that way. No mystical value, no fortunes to be made. Just a pretty rock that held an edge. Where did your people find so much jade? I asked, curious. The deer shaman smiled, but didn't answer my question about the jade. She had her reasons, probably something she couldn't share, not selfishness. We sat on the tallest boulder in the stone field. Below us, her people were hauling wood and bamboo. She wanted to copy our building style and improve her tribe's living conditions. I didn't volunteer to help. They were smart enough to figure out basic bamboo huts on their own, and honestly, most of her tribe still kept their distance from my people. Until we had a real alliance, I wasn't going to beg for friendship. What about the tiger? She asked. I sighed. Searched 3 times. No tracks. Maybe it was just passing through, but the threat hung over us. Every hunting party went out nervous now. I changed the subject by showing her the tin bowls I'd brought. Her eyes went wide the moment she saw them. Shiny silver-white metal, smooth and beautiful. She'd traded with larger tribes for clay pottery before, but this made pottery look like dirt. What do you want for them? She asked, barely hiding her excitement. Deer hides. Lots of them. She wasn't offended. Her people had evolved past that kind of thinking. Bestier tribes and wild animals weren't the same species. Survival sometimes demanded hard choices. Even eating your own kind wasn't unthinkable in extreme situations. You know our ancestral stores have plenty of hides? She asked calmly. I coughed. The pig-ear shaman prisoner had told me that every tribe kept large stockpiles of their species' signature materials, tusks for pig tribes, antlers and hides for deer tribes. If that's too much to ask, I'll trade for tooth-cleaning grass instead. She shook her head with a gentle smile. I was going to bring those hides to the autumn fair anyway. I can give you some now. 7 tin bowls for 7 deer hides, 2 sets of antlers, and a leather bag of chewing grass. A good deal. I broke off a piece of the dried grass and chewed it. My mouth immediately flooded with foamy saliva, some compound in the plant mixed with spit to create a natural toothpaste effect. After I rinsed with water from a bamboo tube, the shaman said something that caught me off guard. Don't bring tin to the trade fair. I looked down, thinking. Someone would try to take it? She shook her head. Not at the fair itself. There are rules. But afterward, powerful tribes would track you down. And your people. She didn't finish. I understood. My tribe was mostly non-shifters. In the eyes of the bestier world, we were weak. Showing off shiny metal would paint a target on us. The prejudice against non-shifters was a mountain. It wouldn't move easily. Her warning sobered me up. I couldn't afford to underestimate anyone in this world, their intelligence or their cruelty. The tall tree catches the wind. I thanked her sincerely and invited her tribe to visit for our wall completion ceremony. The bamboo wall was finally finished. Our settlement was fully enclosed for the first time. Back home, I felt uneasy. The pig tribes to the south knew we existed. Contact was inevitable. A bamboo wall could stop wild animals, but not organized tribes. I started planning a trench outside the walls, lined with sharpened bamboo stakes. The pig shaman had estimated that the grain seeds his people planted in late spring should be ripe by now. Wild rice, or whatever ancestor of rice it was. I wanted to go south and try harvesting it. But showing my face near the merged pig tribe was risky. If they connected me to the man who killed their chief and kidnapped their shaman, they'd come in force. While I was still debating, Chuimo came home after 2 days away. His face told me everything before he opened his mouth. My woman. The tiger killed her. I didn't know what to say. He'd been visiting a female bear who lived alone on the mountain. Bears are solitary. She'd refused to join our settlement despite his asking. I'd suggested it too, but she wanted her own territory. Now she was dead. Watching this big, loyal man who'd followed me through everything sit there with tears in his eyes, I made my decision. Was the tiger hurt? I asked seriously. Yes. I smelled its blood. His eyes went hard. Brown bears and tigers were natural rivals in any world. He wasn't afraid. He was furious. Before autumn arrived, that tiger would die. For Chumo's woman. For our tribe's safety, I assembled 10 fully armed men. Deer Ming, Cat Knight, and 7 others stayed to guard the settlement. I took Chumo, Mian, Jia, and the rest into the mountains. Pine Tree Mountain, east of the bamboo forest, taller than anything in our range. The original resident had been a lone barrier woman, Chu Mo's mate. The tiger had taken her territory days ago. Chu Mo led us up the slope carrying an enormous stone axe he'd ground down himself during boring afternoons at camp. Even without transforming, that weapon in his hands could fell most beasts. Mian usually scouted alone, but this time I kept her at my side. No solo runs on a tiger hunt. She pouted the entire climb. Jia and the others were visibly nervous. This was everyone's first tiger hunt. Fear of tigers ran deep in every beast-ear bloodline. They walked with deliberately quiet steps. Halfway up, we reached a cave, the bear woman's home. Chumo's expression cracked when he saw the clay pots inside. He brought those from our settlement as gifts for her. I put a hand on his back. We rest here tonight. Tomorrow we find it. Mian sat down and pulled off her little deerskin boots. Chinyu had sewn them from tanned hide, and they actually looked like proper footwear. A faint smell of sweat escaped. She caught me looking at her bare white feet and glared. It's still summer, I laughed. Nobody told you to wear leather boots. I noticed something about the little leopard girl over these weeks. She was vain. She loved being clean. She'd started soaking her feet in hot water every night until they went from grimy black to pale white. She was the first person in the whole tribe to actually want shoes. Now she was eyeing the clay pots in the cave. I knew what she was thinking. She wanted hot water for her feet. Let me ask Chuamo. I'll go find water.